feel it. I can feel them dying. It's so good.
Welcome back to Chillporeal, everybody. I am your host, Brian, the Nerdporeal life form himself. And while I'm back from Japan, and I figure get Chillporeal back and going. And I am honored to have the sword and the pen, Amber herself. What's up, Amber? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, and I'm really glad to be here because we're talking about some of my favorite things. We're talking about, well, The Wheel of Time and Star Trek: The Next Generation. Actually, that's my favorite thing. I have not reached the end of the book series, so I cannot categorize Wheel of Time into a favorite yet, but I am told that I most likely will.
Same here. I haven't finished Wheel of Time. It is most certainly not my favorite series. But
No, I'm talking strictly books.
books too. I've had some issues with Fires of Heaven and parts of Shadow Rising and Lord of Chaos, and a little bit of Crown of Swords too. So I'm on Path of Daggers right now. So a lot of the stuff that is good stands out, but there's a lot of chapters I feel I could easily not miss and not miss it basically. So. So that's just me. But I figure, so for this, I forgot to take that thing out of the editor. So that was from episode 1. I think that was from episode 1. They killed Hadi Sedai. They killed her in, I think, the last episode.
They did at the end.
Fired her, I think.
They didn't just kill her, they obliterated her from existence, right?
That is not how balefire is described. Balefire is described as a hot white laser liquid. Hot, fiery, bright liquid that will zap you, and you will turn black and white, and that's it. And then you're just gone.
But I think the show is implying, no, this is our balefire, and since they showed her kind of going back through time, that it was erasing her from those events.
Oh, okay.
Like if you watch that scene where she gets blasted,
yes,
it shows sort of a 3D figure like her in the positions she last was in order of, going backwards in time. And so it's sort of implied that, okay, this has, and then you see the part of the ceiling that had fallen goes back up into the ceiling.
Yeah.
So it's implied that she has been erased from existence, which I don't know. Does that mean that some of the people she killed at the event, the beginning of season 3, when there was the big coup, wasn't a coup, that was a rebellion, whatever.
It was just a wizard fight because Lord of the Rings did, and because Lord of the Rings did, let's have Wheel of Time do it too. It doesn't make sense, no, but that's what they decided. That's why I think they decided to do. But in Wheel of Time, the balefire, it goes back only as far as how strong the caster was, or how strong the channeler is. So if you have someone like Rand, so you got through Fires of Heaven, right? So you saw what happened when Rand balefires Ravin. He balefires Ravin to the point where everything got undone hours ago when Ravin did his little when they accidentally set off one of his wards, to the point where Aviendha, Mat, and Asmodean got fried electrically by lightning, basically. And Rand was barely able to survive it by just creating a shield around himself, but he didn't have enough energy or time to cast or weave something around everybody. So he couldn't save everybody. And that's why he's like, Ravin, and then he goes, and then he's so angry to the point where he makes a door or a gate. And because he was in Camelin in the first book, he knew exactly where to go. He was able to full time and go exactly to that location where Ravin was. And then that's where the chase begins. So I didn't like the chase initially. I thought the chase was a little too dreamy, but after after talking to, the White Cloaks and everybody about the chapter, and then re-listening to it in the audiobook, my opinion of it is improved drastically. So it's actually a really good chapter.
I have a lot of problems with the execution of certain scenes, but then when I go and complain about them to other people, without spoiling things, because going to the White Cloaks is a good place for me to go without getting too many spoilers, because they know I don't want spoilers, and they'll honor that. But they'll fill in some holes that I go, okay, I could see how that would work better. on a reread. My problem with an initial read still exists though. And
That's
as a developmental editor, which is what I do, I'm a developmental editor. I help writers in their early drafts to improve their storytelling,
yes.
whether that's like you have a character who is acting out of character in this scene, so we need to fix that, or you have a loophole in your magic system that we need to figure out. No matter what it is, it's like the earliest stages of fixing a story. I would be telling the author, you need to make this just as visceral and emotional upon a first read. I should
I
not be
agree.
confused about anything that's happening. For instance, that prologue in the first book
Yeah.
really held me up. I must have read it like 5 times before I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this. I just need to keep reading. And then people explained several books down, oh, that's loose there. And I'm like, oh, but
Yeah,
there's ways to fix it so it's still
I-
enjoyable on a first read.
I asked this question when I did my very, very first book club stream. I'm like, is this something that should have been in the beginning, or is this something we should have learned as we went, as we read the book? You know, we learned about loose there, and then we get the full story, you know, later on. We and everything. They're like, nope. It sets up, you know, it sets up the world. It sets up the stakes. It sets up, you know, Sidene is tainted. It sets up the Forsaken. It sets up the dragon. And that was the reason. Now, at the time I was like, okay. And then I reread it. So I read Eye of the World years ago. I read the Game of Thrones books, and I just today I watched your video on your sword. So you have 2 channels. You have Sword in the Pen, and you have Sword in the Pen Reflections. So I was listening to your
So the Sword in the Pen was supposed to be the channel where I did like video essays and uploaded them, and then Sword in the Pen Reflections was supposed to be just off the cuff responses to anything that I'm reading or watching. And I especially wanted to do comparisons, which is where you would get reflections from, right? So
yes.
it was a source material versus its adaptation. But I dedicated too much time to my reflections page necessarily because it started to explode when I was doing the Shadow and Bone series.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't have time to do anything for the Sword and the Pen. But the goal is I want to move my video essays over to the Sword and the Pen, but clean them up a bit. Like even the Hooks video that I did on Game of Thrones that's over on the Sword and the Pen.
Yeah.
That I think I wrote and recorded and edited all of that in like 3 days. So
Wow.
I just very quickly, like I listen to it now and I'm like, oh, it's so terrible. It's horribly written and it's not well edited. I want to redo it. I'm going to redo a lot and put it on there, but that will be formal video essays.
I liked the editing. I mean, that's I thought it was good. I thought that video was really good, and I liked how you talked about, like, you know, hooks and everything. And I mean, like, hooks just like it covers not just like, you know, reading. It covers music. You know, you like there's certain parts of a song that really get you pumped and all that. And I agree with I mean, that's why Game of Thrones worked. There were so many things that hooked you, and especially in that first book. Like you had, I mean, first you had, you know, the others, the White Walkers, basically offing a dude, and killing the dude in the tree. And then you had the wall, and then you have this haunted forest. So you're like, what's going on there? And then all of a sudden we meet this family, the Starks, and then, you know, spoiler alert, a Lannister pushes a kid out of a window. And then they kill the girl. Then they kill the daughter's dog, and then they execute the father at the end of the book. Like, it's crazy. Like, you're all I'm reading this, and I'm like, I want justice for the Starks. That's what kept me invested. And
so a hook, the purpose of a hook is to grab the attention of your audience or your reader and create for them a question of some kind. What's going to happen next? Why is this character like this? Something, you know, what is the explanation for why the world is the way that it is?
Yes.
So to define, to say that there's a specific point in a book or a story or whatever your medium is, this is the hook, to just say that's what you should be focusing on. A lot of writers will be like, I have to make sure my hook is really good. So, you know, where do I start my story here? And I think that if we think about it a little differently instead and say, how many people can I draw in with this story, and what would be interesting to them? Family drama, a
Yes.
buddy story,
Murder
this
mystery.
mysterious ice wall. Like, what?
Yes.
Why did they build this enormous wall, and why are they still manning it when it looks like everything is dead on the other side? You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do to create a mystery, create intrigue, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's one hook. You know, don't think of it that way. You'll limit yourself. You'll also stress yourself out where you don't really need to. And I think Game of Thrones, I have to applaud the adaptation. I mean, everybody
Oh yeah.
poops on Dan and Dan for, you know, oh, they screwed up the last season. They did a darn good job with those early seasons. People love them. I think if they have something guiding them, they do a decent job of I would say Hollywoodizing,
Yeah.
in a positive way, mostly positive way, what people have read and loved. I mean, they cut out a lot of the fluff. They focused on the character drama and the dialogue,
Yes.
which was a great decision. And it worked, and people loved it. Not just typical epic fantasy lovers, but I said it in the video, there were people in bars gathering during the final season to watch every single episode. Like, you had to get there an hour early so you could be up front by the TV, because the bar would be packed full of people to watch what happened at the Battle of Winterfell, you know?
Yeah, the Burlington bar in Chicago is where I'm at. I'm in Chicago. It's actually, the Burlington bar is not too far from me, in the Logan Square area. I thought it was great, like just seeing everybody just, you know, enjoying. Like, I watched the reaction to the finale for season 6, which I thought was total awesomeness. Like, that was, and I thought that was the last good episode of Game of Thrones, to be honest. I mean, I did like the dragon battle between the Lannisters and Daenerys.
Oh, I thought you were going to battle the bastards. Is that what you're talking about?
I like the Battle of the Bastards for the most part. I mean, was it perfect? No. But I liked
the characters.
yeah, I liked how it ended, though. I liked how it ended with Ramsay. The only thing I think was missing is, I think Theon should have been there. There's Theon was to me, Theon was was wasted on like a couple of characters. I think he should have been there when they died. For instance, what do you call it? Well, obviously Ramsay, because Ramsay was torturing him for 3 seasons. So I think he should have been there to see him die. Him and Sansa should have stood there watching the dogs eat him alive, basically.
No, I'll agree with that. Although I did do a whole video on just Theon Greyjoy's arc being one of the most satisfying out of all of them, and that's simply because season 7 was so bad.
Yes.
The final season was so bad. Was it 7 or 8? Were there 7 or 8 seasons? I can't remember.
There were 8 seasons.
Okay.
And so 8 was the one where he dies. He's like, I'm gonna get you. And then the Night King kills him. Yeah.
So his arc was actually very well. It was completed. He restored his honor, came back to the Starks, and did the honorable thing. He died, in battle. I did a whole video just on his redemption, and not really his redemption, but basically I call it the Greyjoy treatment. It's when you're punished for the things that you've done wrong. And so he really suffered all that he was supposed to suffer, and came back fully ready to be redeemed. I said that he ransomed his soul because he had lost it in the early seasons. So well done there. It wasn't the best choice for who should be standing guard over Bran, but for him alone, not for Bran, but for Theon, it still kind of worked, because
I can see that.
He betrayed Bran when he came back to Winterfell and took over it. And then remember, he murdered the 2 boys, the farm boys, to say that, it was actually, Bran and
Rickon. Yeah.
So he betrayed the Starks more vividly through Bran. So for him to die defending Bran, it works.
I agree.
But it would have been better if Jaime Lannister was guarding him. It still would have been better if Jaime Lannister was the one guarding Bran.
Yeah, because I liked how Jaime he basically confronts him and just says, "My bad."
I think that what George R. R. Martin did is create a lot of options for where it could go. And he described this in one of his videos, and I think I've put it in some of my own videos, where he says that he set up all kinds of clues for things about where the story could go. And then when he handed it over, the guys got it, and they said, okay, this is where the story is going. I guess they guessed the birth origin of Jon Snow, and that was kind of like the thing that sold it for George R. R. Martin. Like, okay, they know what they're doing. They've really studied the material. They should take it.
Yeah.
But then they started hearing all the theories about where the story was going to go, and people were getting it right. People were figuring it out online and getting right. Like, oh, this is what's going to happen. This makes the most sense. And they wanted to surprise everybody. And then that ended up creating all of these dead ends where, there have been clues set up to go somewhere and they never get answered. And you have characters doing things that are out of character or don't make sense for them. Like Jon Snow 100% was supposed to win the Game of Thrones. There's no question he was supposed to win. And he probably was supposed to reign alongside Daenerys. He probably had to overthrow her, I think, in order to gain the throne. And so him doing that does work. It happened too quickly, though. Like her going mad and then him killing her. It all just happened way too.
It happened within an episode, just a single episode.
Yeah,
2 episodes, and that's it.
Very
like there should have been a whole season. There should have been a whole season of her being the bad guy if they were going to really do that. But I don't know. Like I honestly was not a fan of the whole Mad Queen Daenerys. I mean, what was the point of her story? A cautionary tale about power or something? Some dipshit stuff like that. Whatever. I was expecting a redemption for her family. I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping for.
The ultimate would have been that the two of them rule side by side.
Yeah.
Because they were the two heroes. They were the two honorable heroes through the whole thing that you're like, okay, yes, I want the two of them to work out. And then they both have a claim to the throne in some way. So it would have, and then plus them being, aunt and nephew, right?
Yeah.
She's the aunt and he's the nephew. That actually works with the incestuous line of the Targaryens for there to be two relatives, eating and producing children. So
yeah. The way that show ended and all that it just left me. I was like, okay, maybe George will finish Wins a Winner. Maybe George will finish Wins a Winner and we'll get a different ending. And then, how long has it been now? It's gonna be 6 years. It's gonna be 6 years since the show ended, and still no Wins a Winner, George.
I think there was some recent announcement that he's really busy doing other stuff and that he's not anticipating finishing it. I wish what he would do is hand over the rights to some other very talented writers. So find some people who you trust and let them pitch some ideas to you and say, this is what I want, this is where I would take the story. And then he can pick one to take over his legacy. I don't see why they couldn't do that. There's plenty of talented writers out there who I think could very easily pick it up and continue it forward. He set a precedent with his early books and with his early style of dialogue and characters and storytelling that I think there's plenty of people out there who could continue it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, somebody already finished the story with AI to the point where he wanted to hold a freaking hold them accountable or something, or sue the hell out of them for that. And then I mean, I think there's an author people say Sanderson doesn't write that. Sanderson doesn't write dark.
No, he's
dark type of fantasy. He's more of a
great advisor on the world building, I think, because he's the kind of person I think who remembers the rules that are set up and the clues that have been laid out, and then he doesn't forget them. I have not read as much Sanderson as I should have, but what I have read of him and what I've studied of his, he is an excellent world builder and he ties up loose ends. He leaves very satisfying endings to his stories. I'm not a fan of his characters or his voice when he's writing, which is a non-voice in his words. But I mean, I get over those because I can respect the way the world is built and how satisfying the ends of his stories are. Like he does wrap them up and like, all right, no questions. Everything was leading to this point and you can kind of see how that was. And you're like, yep, I can see how that was. And everybody walks away satisfied. Yeah.
I mean, if he does finish, great. But at this point, I just kind of, I mean, I feel like, if you get someone like maybe Joe Abercrombie, I just downloaded his First Law trilogy. I think maybe he could possibly, do it justice if it ever came to that. I don't think it will. George's wife is not Robert Jordan's wife, editor and, big wig at a publishing company. So I there's not going to, if something were to happen, I don't think, I don't think it wouldn't be finished anytime soon. Not like as quickly as, as Wheel of Time was with Sanderson and all that. And the reason why they got Sanderson so quickly is because she read his eulogy for Robert Jordan, for her husband, Harriet, and then she read Mistborn, and she felt it with finishing Wheel of Time. So that's why we got the last 3 books, and that's going to be my introduction to Sanderson, the last 3 Wheel of Time books, when I get to them. So
if you read Sanderson, I mean, like I said, I've not read enough of his to be able to make a general conclusion about all of his work, but I've been told start with Mistborn, that it's the one to start with.
Yeah, Mistborn is considered, I think Mistborn is considered his widely popular one, but I think his most thick one, his most the one that's big with
recent one, The Way of
nerds. Kings. Yeah, Way of Kings. Yeah. That's when recent one's Wind and Truth. That's the one with that's the one with therapy and a lot of it's not very anachronistic,
I have started The Way of Kings so many times and I can't get through it. And it's just because it's not my narrative style and I'm waiting for something really engaging in the characters. And it's just not my story. I know that if I finish it, if I were to read all of my sister and her husband love it. And they're like, oh, you would love it. You would really love it. I'm like, I'm sure that I would, but I have to somehow get past the first 2/3 of the book.
Yeah. I tried to listen to a little bit of the audiobook, and I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea, like, are these names that I'm hearing? What is this? And so I just kind of stopped listening to the audiobook. I was like, I'm gonna have to read this first before I listen to the audiobook. So, but yeah, so yeah.
What you might want to try is I've done this before, but not for a while. But when you come across a book that you're struggling to get through, listen to a summary and get to the point where you like, oh, that's something I want to see happen. And then go back and listen to the book again. And I think it'll help because when you get to a summary, it highlights the important events that you need to keep in mind. And then you get to, well, it would be your hook, even if it's much later in the story, the thing that really intrigues you. Oh, I want to see that thing. And then you go back and you read it again. Pay more attention to the important stuff, and it's not going to feel like such a drag because you know where it's going.
Yeah, I was struggling with Wheel of Time for a bit. So I will look ahead. I will look at chapter names. I will look at, like you said, I will look ahead and see if there's any interesting events. The thing is, I've been exposed to a lot of spoilers, so I know certain things happen at the end. I know certain things that happen later. I know certain things that happen later in this book, Path of Daggers, that I'm reading. So, yeah, I mean, I've been trying to approach each chapter, even the chapters that I struggle with. I try to say, what is Jim, because Jim is Robert Jordan's real name. What is Jim trying to say in this chapter? What is he trying to set up? What is he trying to tell the reader and all that? And a lot of the time, it's just him. To me, sometimes it feels like filler. A lot of times it feels like filler, like stuff that you could, like, it's a lot like pages and pages of just descriptions of things that are going to be repeated in a few chapters that have already been described in all the in like the previous book and everything. So one of my disappointments with the Wheel of Time is the there's lore in it, but there's for the length of the series and for the thickness of the books, there's not as nearly as much lore or stories within stories that A Song of Ice and Fire had. And I kind of held Wheel of Time to A Song of Ice and Fire standards. Now, I wasn't expecting to be nearly as grimdark. I'll be honest, Wheel of Time does get dark. It gets extremely dark in what it doesn't show it, but what it suggests. Like Murderall taking women away to do bad stuff to them. It's when you think about it, it's terrifying, and what they do to people when they capture them, what Trollocs do, they eat people and all that. So there's a lot of terrifying, grimdark stuff suggested, but he never ever shows it. Even you read Fires of Heaven, so there was a certain scene in the snow igloo with certain Avienda and Rand, kind of and they're in the Shanshan. They somehow got to the Shanshan land, and they're like, okay, we're cold, and we're naked. We have to warm each other up, and so one thing leads to another, and then time jump, and they did it. They did it.
We're banging.
Yep,
They bang.
did. Yep, and then
Um,
and then that pays off at the end when a certain the rumor starts going around, and a certain Lanfear hears about it, and then she goes apeshit and just starts blowing wagons up. One thing about Robert Jordan, he likes to blow up wagons. Oh wait, yeah. Oh wait, are you still in Lord of Chaos? You're still in Lord of Chaos, right?
Yeah, actually, I pretty much stopped Lord of Chaos right at the very beginning. First of all, because I was struggling through that extremely long first chapter, and then because I had no time. I was editing for Wheel of Time, but anyway, I put that all aside. Now that Wheel of Time is over, and I'm going, okay, I'm never going to get past Amazon's copyright blocks. I'm just going to have to let them out as soon as they let me let them out. So now I can get back to reading it. But I haven't picked it up. I actually thought about it a couple days ago. I've been sick in bed for like the past week, and I'm still coughing and stuff now. But I thought about just listening to it, and then I started that first chapter and was like, no, wait, I remember. I don't want to be sick and in bed listening to this. So I figured I'd just wait until I'm feeling good and I'm on a drive or something, and then I can really focus on it, because I know it's one I struggled with.
The first chapter is actually really good. It builds up to a certain Mazrim time, and then you get to the first 3 chapters are excellent, and then it's where chapter 5, when they introduce Matt, is a very long-winded chapter. I mean, I got into this little debate with Dane. Dane, by the way, I have to shout out Dane. Dane is the reason why you and me are doing this Chillporeal. He's like, you should go on with Amber. She's a big Star Trek fan like you are.
I am. I love Star Trek.
So we were debating. He's like, oh, this is all awesome. I'm like, well, it isn't. It feels like, okay, we're reintroducing Matt. Matt is doing Matt stuff, and then Matt meets a certain character who actually kind of steals the show. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to spoil it. No spoilers for Amber. But ever since I started the book club, I was asking everybody what their favorite book in the series is, and I think, with the exception of 1 or 2 people, everybody said Lord of Chaos.
Oh, really?
Yes. So Lord of Chaos is most people's favorite book. And then I got to the end of the book, and I found out why. So the last 7 chapters. So I was complaining about Shadow Rising and the Fires of Heaven, and even parts of Lord of Chaos at points. The last 7 chapters of Lord of Chaos are stellar. It's something I've been waiting for in the series for a long time. When to feel like our characters are in trouble, and they need to be, and everybody comes together to mount a rescue without going any further. It's
don't say
really no. I won't say no, but it was okay. The buildup was fantastic, and okay. I can't wait for you to get there. It was really good. I enjoyed it. I kind of saved face with the White Cloaks. I thought the White Cloaks were going to disown me. If you don't like the Wheel of Time, maybe you should stop reading it. So now I'm gonna finish the series. My plan is to finish the series this year. I want to finish it I want to try and finish Path of Daggers this month, and then Winter's Heart the next month. I want to get through the Slog before the fall. So Slog is 8 books, 8, 9, 10. So and by the fall, I want to get to the finale.
7 was part of the Slog. Maybe I've got that wrong?
Some people say book 7 is part of the Slog. Some people say Lord of Chaos is part of the Slog because of the fact that the story kind of slows down. Now, book 7 does slow down the story, but I feel that there was enough meat in book 7, Crown of Swords, that I don't really consider it. I mean, I don't consider it the Slog, where it gets boring and all that. I've heard nothing but bad things about book 8, so I'm curious to see if that's the case. So, but yeah, so I can't wait to finish the series and just get a lot. I want to try and up my reading. I read very slowly. Maybe it's because of I blame Wheel of Time for me not reading nearly as much as I used to. But I actually want to finish the series and start I need to read every day and try to speed up my reading my reading. Try to speed up my reading in particular. Like
You
I
may
can
also
barely get through a
feel like
chapter.
you need to get yourself into a story that's like a real page turner for you. I have the feeling that Wheel of Time is one of those stories that I'm going to have to push myself through a lot in the first reading, but the second one is where I'll be motivated to read it again. Just from the descriptions that people give me, that there is so much put into creating a satisfying payoff at the end, and it makes you realize that there are things set up in book 1 and 2 and 3 and all the way through that are all woven together and create this ending. And that is really interesting to me. I call it reconsumable content. It's where you can consume it more than one time, and each time you reconsume it, you pick up something new. And that's really, I do better with that. I do better with reconsumable content than anything else, as far as stories is concerned.
Yeah, I actually reread. I don't usually reread books. I don't read nearly as often as I should, but I reread Song of Ice and Fire back in like 2015, 2016. I enjoyed it even more. Everybody complains about Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons, and I thought Feast for Crows was fantastic. Like even I got into some heat about comparing. I compared book 4 of Wheel of Time to book 4 of Song of Ice and Fire, and I said I preferred Feast for Crows over Shadow Rising. Everybody's like, "What are you smoking or something? What are you smoking, dude?" I'm like, "No, I liked how it set certain things up. There were some really great moments. There were some. I mean, Shadow Rising had some really great moments too. It had the stone stands. You had all of Perrin's arc." With the exception of the very, very end with how they handled the White Cloaks was one nitpick I didn't like.
Well, is Shadow Rising book 4? It's book 4, right?
Yeah, that's the one where Perrin goes. So they're in Tyr. Rand gets Kalendor, and all of a sudden the Trollocs, he's dealing with all this intrigue with all these characters whose names I forgot because they're not important. But he's just the only thing I remembered from that is that he's like, you're gonna give everybody this food, or I'm gonna hang you lords and all that. And then and then the stone stands where Lanfear shows up. She's like, I'm Lanfear. I was Selene, but now I'm Lanfear, and I want you to join me, Rand. Join me in my quest to destroy the Dark One. And then all of a sudden, a gray man comes into the door. He doesn't notice him. It's like, oh wait, there's a gray man. Kills him.
I didn't do that. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, I didn't do that. And then he opens the door, sees all of his Aiel guards are dead because of the gray men. So the gray men have been elevated as a threat. And then all of a sudden there's all these Trollocs just killing everybody. And then he just gets out there, and then he's just like, the stone stands, rally to the stone. And all three of the characters get into that moment where they are thrust into leadership, where they're like, rally to me. Perrin does it in that book. I think Matt does it in I think he does it at the end of Fires of Heaven.
Is it in Fires of Heaven?
Yeah, Battle of Kyrian.
It is, yeah. Okay, because I really liked the Shadow Rising conclusion as well. I thought that Rand doing something clever with the magic was something I'd been waiting to happen. Like, I didn't want just a power battle. I thought that the ending of the Great Hunt was pretty good. That making the self-sacrificing sort of move in order to get a kill shot in.
The sheathing the sword was awesome.
Yeah,
that whole,
but I felt
you know how I imagine that scene where he's like, all of a sudden he's like, where the heck am I? I'm in the clouds. What's going on? And he sees Balsamon waiting for him with his weapon. I was thinking of the opening fight of in Star Wars with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader on the Death Star. Like Obi-Wan's wandering around, and all of a sudden Darth Vader's there waiting for him. That's how I imagined that fight beginning, or at least if I was to adapt that. And then with Dragon Reborn, when he fights Bilal in front of Kalendor, I was thinking Empire Strikes Back. The power's with you. The power's with you, Rand al'Thor, but you are not the dragon yet. So, but that's how I read that. That's how I read that, and I liked the first 3 books a lot. The first book, it was slow at points, but I just liked how they were broken up. They had to learn how to survive. Rand and Matt had to learn how to survive on their own. And then book 2, Rand learns how to become a leader of a few people. And then book 3, Rand becomes the Dragon Reborn. He gets Kalendor, and he's like, he reveals to himself.
He's not in the third book a whole lot, except in the beginning and at the very end. And then, if I recall,
that was interesting because like there were stakes there. Like they have to get to him. He's alone. He's being hunted. You find out in the beginning of Dragon Reborn that Jacob Carradine, one of the White Cloaks, or one of the Questioners, is a Dark Friend, and he's ordered to kill Rand by some Murdral, who we find out is special in book 6. I don't know if you've met Shader Haran yet in the prologue.
In the very beginning, yeah.
The very beginning, you have Demandred. Demandred goes to Shale Ghul, and there's this really tall Murdral. It's basically the same. It's basically the same character, I think. Dane might disagree with me in the chat. So, the first three books were fantastic. I would probably reread those, and then reread certain chapters of Shadow Rising. And the rest so far. Dane's telling me to reread books 1 through 7 now that I'm halfway through before attempting book 8. But I'm already on chapter 1 of book 8. I got through the prologue, and now I'm on chapter 1. And then hopefully I'll get done with the book this month, and then we'll do a book club or something. So, by the way, I want to show you how I introduce my book club, since that'll be a great way to segue into Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I got 2 clips.
Okay.
I have so every time, so the book club is a series of streams that I do talking about the Wheel of Time. So I try to keep them linked. And what do? I do last time or previously on Wheel of Time Revisited. And then you might hear some familiar music from a certain show, from a certain franchise that I might have just mentioned. So
let's hear it.
I'll share this. I'll share this one right here. So this is previously on right now. Last time on Revisiting the Wheel of Time. I did not know that they said blowjob. Blowjob works too. So
I've always found that to be the case, but hey, that's just me. Plaid shame Nerdporeal. Because look at Pips. Pips has got his plaid on. Your man Salty's wearing plaid. And we got Mr. Chicago over here, who's too cool to get with the program and wear a flannel shirt. Okay, that's not plaid. That's not plaid. This is what I'm talking about.
Fuck plaid and fuck flannel. Nobody wants any flannel or plaid. I mean, come on. This isn't Spaceballs, like Pip said. I did also learn something very important. I didn't know that Dempsey was only worth $18. So
that's not.
He's worth less if you talk to him nicely.
Miss Krista Dempsey, I think you need to get a refund. I think
no, it's not true, Dempsey. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
Cheap and Irish has always worked for me. I mean, I don't know.
It's so bad. I don't know. I guess you guys want to talk about the prologue? I don't know if any of you guys seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, but I got a lot of Eyes Wide Shut vibes from this chapter.
I'm not sure I got any of that.
Yeah,
more terrified people.
But,
more terrified people trying not to screw up and die is what I got.
I could see that for the first half, and then the dude with the fiery eyes and the Murdral walk in, and then you're like, everyone is about to piss themselves.
Yeah.
This show has really infected your thinking, Brian.
How connected is Mordath to the Dark Lord?
Give an answer to that question, and we can kind of respond to your take on it.
Yeah. It's a very definitive answer, so you'll know. Like it's not something you miss. It's just like, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, about 2 weeks, by the way.
And now the continuation.
That was all from the Best of Both Worlds.
I caught that. You can tell
one.
because it's got that Picard turned to the dark side theme,
Yes.
like that. I was like, yes, I know that theme.
So that was streamed over 2 years ago. So I started Eye of the World book club back in 2020, late 2022. So I've been reading the series for a couple of years now. So that's kind of why I'm like, you know what, I need to kind of wrap this series up this year. So that's kind of the reason. So, but I wanted to show you how I ended my streams. I'm sure you're going to know exactly how I ended. So here, this is a much quicker one. So, all right.
Okay, go for it. Yeah,
I've never gotten copyright for that.
Oh, good job. Yeah, that's another best of both worlds. End of part 1.
That was so 50th anniversary was 2016 for the franchise, and they were having concerts of some of the best known themes, and they had an intermission, and they ended the first half of the they ended the first half of this with that theme. It was the coolest thing ever to see that performed live. And like my friend and I were just going nuts. So it was it was a great time. And that's one of the most unforgettable to be continued themes I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, I think well, also because it was an important moment in television. I mean, people who weren't into Star Trek knew that the series ended that season on Picard being ordered to be blown up by Riker. Oh my gosh, my language skills are just not here right now. Just chalk it up to pneumonia. But yeah, that episode was important in television in general, because sort of like how Game of Thrones people got on board for the season finale, it had a similar effect. It was one of the most watched episodes, I think, in all of television.
I've heard like fans would go up to Patrick Stewart and be like, "You ruined my summer." I was
just the summer, like that's all you like. That's it. Like,
yeah.
Oh man,
compared to now, where you have to wait like 2 to 3 years for a new season. I mean, Stranger Things, Duffer Brothers. I'm looking at you right now. I mean, it's been when did they do season 4? It was 2022. It's going to be 3 years since they did season 4 of Stranger Things, and they're going to do the final season this year. They still haven't even put out a date yet. So
long. Yeah. I think that what they need to do is they need to get back to the old style where we would have a season run all year, basically. Mm-hmm. Shorter episodes is fine. I mean, but Star Trek, they took up a full hour with some commercial breaks. Like 45-minute episode is not bad.
Yeah. The 26 episodes a season compared to what, 8 episodes, 8 to 12 episodes now.
I have nothing wrong with a television series like what we had in Star Trek, which was episodic. It was, for the most part, episodic. There were a few threads that were continued through the entire series. Like when something really important to a character happened, it sort of affected them going forward. But there weren't a whole lot of those moments. And for the most part, you could jump in at any point in any season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, especially, and just like, I understand what's happening. I know who these characters are, and just enjoy it. You could watch them out of order for the most part and enjoy it. But you could tell a long form story, which is a continuous story like The Wheel of Time, and do it over many episodes that you air throughout the year. But you have to write it all out in advance. So I don't think that there needs to be a rethinking of how episodes are written for television in order to fix this issue of there's like a 2-year break between seasons. That's like happening with everything. And it's not good. You have a huge viewership drop off at the end of each season. Like One Piece was great, but it was 2 years ago now, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, that's too long. I think that you can't expect your audience to hang around this long. You had a huge viewership for that first season. Coming back, you're going to have to rebuild it. I mean, they're lucky enough that I think the first season was so good. They've built more audience while it wasn't premiering, when it didn't come out. But the thing is you're still going to have some drop off, and you don't want that. You want to keep the interest up. And I think that just a few months break is way less harmful than a couple of years break. So if you workshop your entire story well in advance, and you prepare each episode's script far in advance, like they have been worked to hell. You've had the writers working on them, the directors working on them. All the actors have come in and done readings. You've figured everything out. Then what you do is while one season is going, you can be doing the final touches on maybe 2 seasons ahead or something. But you can't be doing.
Know what a good example of that is? Babylon 5. Babylon 5 is a great example of what you just said. That was all written in advance. And The thing was there were actors that had to leave the show. So instead of simply recasting a new actor to play the character, he would basically he had a backup plan in case characters or actors had to leave, and he would have a new character put in place and kind of fulfill that arc. And like, for instance, the commander in the first season left the show. Michael O'Hare had to leave the show because of, after he died, we found out that he had mental health issues. So he quit and had to deal with that. So they brought in Bruce Boxleitner. You know, Bruce Boxleitner he was in Tron. He plays Tron in Tron.
Oh, okay.
So they brought him in to play Captain Sheridan, and Captain Sheridan pretty much became the main character going forward. And he basically kind of took over Sinclair's arc. But there was one thing about Sinclair that they kept, and there was a time travel episode in the first season that they were able to use to kind of he rewrote it, followed up on that time travel episode to kind of wrap up that character, wrap up the Sinclair character. So they brought the character back for a single episode in the third season, and they were able to pay that off. So the problem with Babylon 5 was the final season there was a lot of things that were left open because they wanted to make more spin-off shows, and the spin-off show that they made wasn't successful, so they ended up canceling everything. So, but yeah, Babylon 5 is a perfect example of that. I don't think Star Trek did that. I don't know if they wrote out like season,
like Tasha Yar, they wrote her out and then she came back. They wrote out Beverly Crusher and then she wrote her back.
They fired her. They
fired her because she criticized the quality of the writing in the early seasons, which it totally deserved. But then they brought her back.
Was that the reason?
Still gave her
so that was the reason.
roles.
Her and Maurice Hurley probably had issues. Like Maurice Hurley was a jerk. Once he left and they had Michael Piller take over as the showrunner in season 3, the series shifted tremendously. Like, they started I think one of the earliest episodes that started the whole season by season character arcs was Sins of the Father with Worf.
Season 3 is when Gene Roddenberry no longer had control over the show, and the writers just totally got wild. The second season is when they figured out that they could do character arcs.
Yeah.
And they could okay, we can do character centered episodes where we focus on one character and have them go through a little journey, and then we have the sci-fi elements are there as well.
Did they not do that in season 1? I mean, you had episodes
not
like
as much.
Lore,
it wasn't until season 2 where they really understood this is what we can do and it works the best. But then season 3 is when Gene Roddenberry was no longer involved, no longer had the control over the show, and so they were able to really take off with what they wanted to do in season 3.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could definitely see that. I mean, there was the episode where they go to the 80s planet, and Riker is wearing this you could see his hairy chest. I don't know if you remember that episode. You had the 80s women were the matriarchal society, and it was a bunch of women with 80s
that one
hair.
where all the women were giant and the men were small. Yeah. I remember.
And then the leader falls in love with Riker because Riker's a big man. Riker's a big man, and he's wearing their outfit. And he has you could see his entire hairy chest and all that. I guess that's a Riker episode. And then you had the one with the Admiral that ages, and I think it was Too Short a Season. I think was the name of the episode where the Admiral ages,
where he's going backwards,
or de-ages. He de-ages, and then he dies of de-aging poisoning, temporal poisoning, or whatever. Yeah, and what's funny was the bad guy in that episode was the bad Klingon dude that tries to goad Scotty into punching him in the face in The Trouble with Tribbles. The same actor, Michael Paddicky.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, okay, did you ever watch the little mini documentary that William Shatner hosted called Chaos on the Deck?
I have. I still have not seen it. Oh my gosh,
it's so good. It's got to be probably the best, funniest documentary on Star Trek I have ever seen. It is hilarious, and it's specifically on the early seasons of Next Generation. You have to go and see it.
All right,
It was 1 and 2. What was that?
Season 1 and season 2. I'm assuming were the focus.
It was 1, 2, and I think 3 a little bit, because it talks about when Gene Roddenberry passed away, and I think it was during 3 or 4 when he died. He was in 5. Okay, well, either way, he started dying, and then
Unification. When Unification Part
That's
1
right.
came out, I think they put down, in loving memory of Gene Roddenberry and all that. So he didn't. So then he wasn't alive to see Star Trek 6. Star Trek 6 came out a month later. What's funny was Unification was like a tease to Star Trek 6 because that came out before, and Spock is like, "Oh, I had to get Captain Kirk out of a pickle." And I don't want to. That's why I decided to do, this, not let anybody know that I'm going to Romulus and all that. And and it took me a while to realize that came out first because I thought Undiscovered Country came out first, but no, actually that wasn't the case. So, Roddenberry died during the 5th season, and unfortunately, it was the same with the movies. Like, Roddenberry only was involved with the motion picture. And everybody complained about the motion picture. It was, basically 2001 / Close Encounters, very slow, not minimal dialogue, but very artistic type of movie. I love the film, and the film is what, it was originally, that was what Next Generation was originally supposed to be. Phase 2 was basically that, but it became a movie. They brought the original crew back. It became a movie series, a successful one. And so they kind of left, they're like, we have a chance to do Star Trek again with with another crew. And they did it. And they managed to, they were reviving a bunch of shows from the 60s. So Star Trek wasn't the only one. They revived Mission Impossible, its original sister show that was also done by Desilu. They revived The Twilight Zone in the late 80s. I'm sure, I forget, I think they revived a few other shows from that era too, but they all got canceled. Star Trek, The Next Generation, managed not to get canceled.
Barely.
And it's everybody. When you go around, you ask everybody, I'm sure you're one of them. It's everybody's favorite Star Trek show.
Oh yeah. I think that because I was a child when it was airing, and I remember watching it.
I was a baby. I was 3 when the first season came out. So I didn't get into Star Trek until I was 11 or 12. This was like 96. So I got into it after TNG came out. The first show I watched as it came out was, believe it or not, was Voyager. So that's where me and Dane bond over Voyager. We're both about the same age, and we talk about Voyager quite a bit. And that's how I got that, and that's what introduced me to watching TNG. And plus I watched TNG films. I was watching the TNG films as a kid as they came out. So that's what brought me to watch reruns of Next Generation. I'm an original series purist. I don't know if you noticed in my intro, but every intro to Chillporeal begins with those same clips up until I get to talking about whatever the topics are. But it's all the same Star Trek. It's all the same Star Trek clips. So that's how much of a nerd I am.
I'm series. A sucker for the fun stuff. So I really enjoyed, I think it was Star Trek 4. The one where they go back for the whales in San Francisco. Is that 4?
Yeah, that's the one where Scotty says, "I've traveled millions of miles, thousands." Yes, I traveled thousands of miles.
Yes,
to give you a transparent aluminum.
Like, hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
I love that movie. I think for me, it's maybe part of the living vicariously. I want to be somebody who is, there bumping into Chekhov, on the street and asking, where is Alameda?
we're looking for the nuclear vessels in Alameda.
But where is Alameda?
But where is Alameda? And then the guy just looks at him and is like, this is during the Cold War. You have to think about it. This is during the Cold War.
Oh yeah.
And a Russian guy is asking, Russian guy with a thick Russian accent is asking a cop where the naval base is. Where the naval base is.
See, I love that episode. That out of all the movies, that's the one that I think I've watched and rewatched the most because it was just fun. And for me, I have so much fun in the fun movies that's what they're there for me. Like, it's hard for me sometimes to get invested in drama, and it may also be that a lot of the TNG movies I found a bit disappointing.
They're like the original movies are like high tier. Everybody will say Star Trek 5 is, not one of them. I like Star Trek 5 as a kid. That's kind of what got me, kind of what pulled me into liking the shows when I got older. But yes, the original six movies are here. A lot of people say First Contact's the best movie. It's the best TNG movie in my opinion, but I think they're lower quality. It's more action. They turned Picard into action hero Picard, and I'm not the first one that has said this. Red Letter Media said this years before that.
I don't mind if his opponent is on the same level as him, like two old guys who are fighting with pistols or whatever. So like Generations didn't bug me that much. And also I really loved that Shatner was in it and that he got to show off riding. Like, so Shatner is like, he's a real horseman. And so I was like, yay, they've got Bill Shatner and he's riding a horse. And then he got to show, I guess he basically taught Patrick Stewart like how to ride specifically for that movie. But
Search for Spock was not horrible. Sorry.
What?
It says 246 and the Borg. The rest are horrible. Star Trek 3 was not a bad movie. Star Trek 3.
That was one where that's the one where Spock dies, right?
That was Wrath of Khan.
Star
Trek 3.
Yes, you're right. 2 and then 3.
Search for Spock. They go back for him, but
I like that one.
Another character dies. Another character that was introduced in the Wrath of Khan dies. You hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Looks like my monitor froze. My monitor froze.
Oh. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
But I think Search for Spock's a fantastic movie. The motion picture is highbrow. The first movie is very highbrow, so it's not for everybody, and it does get boring at points. I get why people feel that way, but yeah, I figure I'd do that. So, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I don't even remember what the heck I was talking about. Just that I thought that Search for Spock for me was always one of the creepier ones. Like, to me, it felt like a ghost story almost in some scenes. And so when I think about it, I remember when they found Spock, or I remember when, like the scenes that are creepy to me. For me, yeah, I would have to say that out of all of them, 4 is still my favorite, but mostly because it was so much fun that I had no problem watching it over and over and over again. I know everybody loves Wrath of Khan, and I can see how it's good, and obviously it's very emotional at the end. I mean, it's definitely Bill Shatner's best performance ever.
Oh yeah, like what's weird is that reaction is so true to someone you pass away. Like the shock just leaves you slumping over like that.
Yeah,
because that's exactly how I reacted when my father passed away. So now that I'm older and I've had more life experience, that the end of that movie is much. Like, as a kid, I didn't really appreciate it until, now. So.
Yeah. But, I think that's also something. So Star Trek, like I said, I started watching TNG when I was a kid. That's when it was premiering. Like, my parents would stay up late and watch Star Trek, and my sister and I would sneak out, and we would sit in there was a corner in our house. And so we would lay on the corner and watch the TV from behind our parents. They had no idea we were watching. And of course, there were some horror episodes that we definitely shouldn't have seen when we were kids. Like the one where there's like some sort of a phase bubble or something moving through the ship, and like a woman falls through it, and then they turn the corner and they see her, and she's just like halfway through the floor dead. I just remember like had nightmares about that for years.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was the same episode, but there was an episode where they encountered this entity that is doing basically experiments on them.
The face.
Yeah, the face.
That was in season 2. Yeah.
That was in season 2, and all of a sudden the black navigator is like, and then he just drops dead. It was terrifying. It was I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, but so what my point was is that I remember watching these as a kid and being fascinated, and then as an adult, I watch them again and I go, my gosh, like there was so much good stuff in here. There were so many good stories throughout all of TNG. Anytime that if I was going to talk to somebody who was experiencing writer's block, I'd be like, what you need to do? You need to go watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, watch it all the way through until you come across an episode that sparks the inspiration for you, because there's so many different stories throughout the whole thing, and all of them are really well done. Well, no, not really well done, but they're at least explored enough to a point where the majority of them, where you are left thinking and you are left wanting to know more and wanting to do more with it. And I think that would be a good way to help people get past a lot of their writer's block. It gets the creative juices flowing. I mean, especially if you're like, I really want to write a story, but I don't know what to write about. You know what? Pick a Star Trek Next Generation episode and go, what if I did that in a fantasy setting? Or what if I did, and see how it goes. See what ideas come to mind. But Next Generation, it took science fiction, the epic science fiction, to a level of prestige, I think, that people weren't expecting even from Star Trek. Like Star Trek hinted at it, the original series, but Next Generation said, no, this is what we are. This is what we're here for. And there were lots of crap episodes, yes, but there were lots of really, really good ones too. Good episodes that even today you go, dang, they were ahead of their time.
Yeah, well, let's name a few of those fantastic episodes. I mean, for me, I'm sure you agree with this. One episode that never leaves a dry eye is The Inner Light.
Everybody loves that episode. Yes.
Just the idea that, so what do we know about Picard from the very beginning in Encounter Farpoint? We know that he's not comfortable around children. We know that his life, his family. He kind of put that all aside to become a captain. His entire priority, his path moving forward was all about becoming a captain in Starfleet and all that.
He is the ideal of Starfleet, I think. If you were to take his character as, he is what Starfleet would aspire to produce regularly. Yes.
So you have that, and then all of a sudden Picard, they come across this probe from this system that's been dead for a millennia. And then all of a sudden he gets hit by these invisible beams, and all of a sudden he's transported into this world, and he still has his memories as Picard. But then as he lives in the life of this person named Kamen, he has a woman in his life. He marries her, and then he has a family. And then he deals with all the struggles of, having a family, being married, being a father, and everything. What's funny is his son, his older son, plays his son in that episode. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, really?
Daniel,
I did not know that.
His son's name is Daniel Stewart. He was wearing a hairpiece because he was bald too. But his son was in that episode.
Now I want to see that one again and keep that in mind, because I did not know that.
Yeah, they named him after his best friend, was it Bataille and all that. And then we find out, he's been trying to come up with solutions for, the fact that the world is dying, and that, there's eventually going to be a supernova that's going to kill the planet. And the end of that episode is so poignant. The fact that he's muttering to himself that his grandkids are not going to live the full life that he did. And it's just, you think about it, it's so messed up. And then right at the very end, it was basically, hey, we were here to basically share our story with you, so that we will not be forgotten. And then he wakes up and he's like, how long has it been? They're like, oh, 25 minutes. He's like, 25 minutes. And then they look into they bring the probe on board, and what's in that probe? It's the flute, the Russian flute that he was playing, that he learned to play throughout the thing. And he's playing it. He retained that memory on how to play it. And it was such a great ending to an episode. It was so sad, but it's hard to explain. It was
a very moving episode for
moving.
Being so self-contained. I think that this show won 2 Hugo Awards. One was for that episode, and the other one was for All Good Things, which is the finale, which I thought was brilliant too. But this one,
the trial never ends, Amber. The trial never ends.
But that's why it's great.
Yes.
Okay, so my favorite episodes, if you were to catch me, I have trouble telling people what my favorite music is, what my favorite book is, what my favorite movies are, because it depends on how I feel.
It shifts.
Exactly. It depends. And it's not even like, oh, I've consumed something new and now it's that. It's more like, no, right now I'm feeling dark, so it's Game of Thrones, or whatever. But it's the same thing with TNG, because I can say that, I really love these episodes because I can see the quality in the writing, or there's something greater about the storytelling in these than others. But then there are other episodes where I'm like, but I just love this one too. But for me, consistently in the top are the Q episodes.
Okay.
Q is, I think, a brilliant character. And I've done
agree.
so I talked about this is not my first time talking about TNG on YouTube. I did a presentation about my favorite episodes and my favorite characters, etc. And Q brought, I think, that higher level of writing into Star Trek. So the first 2 episodes, well, it's actually 1 episode, but they often say that it's 2. The Encounter at Farpoint, Starpoint, whatever, that one. I'm never really good with those names, but I remember them mostly. It was originally just an hour. And it was the story of, the ship, everybody getting together, going to this base, and finding out something's going on here. It's weird. And then they discover that they're basically holding an alien hostage and making it their slave. And it's making their technology seem so awesome, but it's all fake. Anyway, so they're like, you know what? We want to do an hour and a half long intro to the series. So add more. And Gene Roddenberry came up with Q and said, what if this omnipotent being, this so high evolved being came in, and this is a test for humanity? And then that creates obviously the perfect bookend at the end of the series. So Gene Roddenberry came up with Q. And a few things to point out is that everybody was sort of opposed to Q in the beginning because they're like, this is God. You've put God in this show. And he's like, no. He's just a super high evolved being. But they've never really, there are a few episodes where they screw it up. But in the episodes that are most intelligently written and are meant to be poignant involving Q, they leave it so ambiguous that he is some higher being, maybe not just evolved higher, but possibly something beyond what humans even could ever be. And which leaves it open to, what are you? And what are you trying? Why are you involved in humanity? And I love that because it's this huge gap of mystery between what we know and what the possibilities are. And that just, to me, that is the possibilities of adventure to go on, which is how the series ends. The series ends in another trial that mirrors the first episode. In every way, it mirrors the first episode. You're at the end of the series, the entire series, you're still in a trial with Q. He's like, it has never ended. It is continuing on. And then even when it's over, it's still going. But then the things that he says and does do imply that he is trying to coax humanity into a higher understanding, like something greater, even something that you can't even fathom. And I love that because it's almost like the perpetual box, where the box with the perpetual motion machine inside of it. You know that there's a machine with that creates perpetual energy inside of it, and you don't know what it is, but your job is to design it. So it's in the box, you can't see it, but you have a piece of paper and pencil and you're supposed to design it. So the possible, the things that it'll drive your imagination to go to are boundless, because there's no such thing as perpetual energy. You cannot create perpetual energy. So
conservation. Law of conservation.
Exactly. Excuse me, coughing and sneezing and stuff. I'm still sick.
Don't worry about it.
But that is kind of what Q is he creates that higher element of mystery and brings it almost to the spiritual level of trying to understand, why are we here? Why are humans here? What is our purpose here? And for me, it's such a great question to end on, because it's like, that's where science does lead to. Eventually you get to a point where you go, how? Like, why? Not just how, but why?
Is there like, it's like Spock says in the motion picture, is there nothing more? V'ger's existential question. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Q. I liked. I thought it was very interesting. That's a very interesting take on Q. I've never heard that one before. The perpetual energy in the box. Or the perpetual
engine in the box.
Perpetual engine in the box. Okay, the first time hearing that.
Perpetual engine, an engine that creates perpetual energy or functions through perpetual energy in a box.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but then you're told to design it. Like, it's there. Now you have to try to, like, you will always, you'll never get there, but you'll always get closer and closer. It's an infinite problem. It can never be solved. But So
like
Q
solving pi, for instance.
there you go. It just goes on forever.
Hey, that's how they defeat an evil incorporeal being in the original Star Trek. So, by the way, my name Nerporial comes from the word corporeal or incorporeal, which I believe it or not learned from Star Trek. So, Q. What's funny is Q is not the first godlike being to appear in the franchise. So, if you watch the original series, there was a character named Trelane in the first season called the Squire of Gothos. He had the in that world, he was a child, even though he was a very old child, but he was a child that was able to basically appear, vanish on the Enterprise, bring the Enterprise back, he would move his planet towards them and chase them in space and all that. And like Kirk tried to fight him, couldn't fight him, because every time he tried to swing a sword or shoot the phasers, they'd vanish or something. So so that and what's funny is there was a book where they there was a book in the I don't know if you call it the expanded universe for Star Trek, but it was a 90s book, and I forgot the name of it, but I think it was called Q Squared, and the character Trelane was in there, and Trelane, we learn, is actually a member of the Q Continuum, and he's actually very dangerous, and Q tries to get Picard's help in stopping him or something like that. So Q for me is basically he's the guy that everybody does not like. Like he shows up on board, everybody tells him to leave. Like our crew is very tolerant of other species, other races, try to build good relations. But Q, because of what Q did in the first episode, they don't trust him. They think he's a troublemaker. So every time he shows up and appears, they ask him to leave. So there's a lot of comedy right there. But I think some of my favorites with him are the ones where he really challenges the crew to think differently. Q Who is a very good example of that with the Borg, where he introduces them to the Borg. So the whole idea is, you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
he's like, you're not ready. He's like, you're not ready for what's you're not ready for what's out there.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to be a part of the crew. Like, we don't need you, Q. Are you sure? You're not ready for what awaits you. He's like, well, when the time comes, we'll be ready to, handle it on our own terms. And then Guinan. So apparently, okay, I have to ask you this. What was with Guinan doing this to him? Like, were they trying to insinuate that she was another Q?
No. Guinan is another kind of alien. I forgot what it's called, but there's a whole bunch of
she's
them.
An Elorian. Elorians are natural listeners that live very, very long compared to humans. I mean, they're humanoid, but they live very long lives.
He's had encounters with the Continuum and with Q, but and doesn't like them, obviously. He's a troublemaker. But the thing is that I never quite understood why she didn't like him and didn't have almost a reverence for him at some point, because he doesn't seem to have a malicious intent through his most important episodes. So in Next Generation, he's in 8 different episodes, and 2 of them are strictly silly episodes. Okay. But
Deja Q and Cupid.
Yeah, those are strictly silly. The other ones, even though they have silly things happening in them, he's still confronting the crew with an interesting conundrum or something that it challenges them to think beyond what they normally would think. Giving Riker the power of the Q is a silly one, but it does challenge them, to think about how does this limit your experience as a human being to suddenly have everything you've ever wanted?
Absolute
How does
power
that
plus
challenge
absolute
your
power
experience?
corrupts absolutely. I mean, which has already been covered in earlier Trek. So yeah, I mean, but that I think that's a universal. I think that's a universal thing that needs to be.
But I think that was it was a deeper level than that, even, because that was something that was tapped into, but then it wasn't about that, because remember, when he offers the gifts to everybody around him, they turn it down because for various reasons, but in the end they realize this is not something that I want to be just handed to me, because part of the human experience is the struggle to achieve what you're attempting to achieve, and to just have things at your fingertips like that is fundamentally inhuman.
I think
so-
bringing the girl back would have been fine though. But like, you know, him wanting to age Wesley, and Wesley's like, you know, I'd rather just get there on my own. Totally get that. The healing of Geordi, like he wouldn't be the same person if he had his sight versus how he managed to accomplish to get on board the, you know, the flagship, you know, to be a part of the crew in space, you know. But he wouldn't have done that if he wasn't blind. Like, it's very interesting. Like, you know, the struggles that we carry, you know, will lead us down, you know, down unique paths, basically. Or, you know, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Okay. Yeah, I just had to bring that in.
So Q's character he's written like Shakespeare's fool, who is not necessary to the plot, but will comment on it and will prod the main characters in the ways that they needed to be prodded in order to sort of self-reflect or reflect on their situation from an outside perspective, bringing in that outside perspective and maybe some higher wisdom. And so he plays that character very, very well. Also, all of his dialogue, well, not all of it, but most of his dialogue, especially, gosh, in that last episode, is just so freaking good. And it's written a lot. He says a lot. He does quote actual literature quite a bit, but when he's not, and it's just what the writers for Star Trek wrote for him, it's almost poetry. It's so good. And it does leave a lot in the subtext. I love that last conversation that he has with Picard. And to me, that's the defining moment for Q, is Picard realizes that Q is trying to tell humanity something. And Picard is like, what is it you're trying to tell us? What is it?
You'll find out.
I'm not telling. I love that so much. It's so good. It's so well done. Oh man, I could watch just that scene over and over again and go like, I can't believe they wrote this.
Yeah, that whole
50
thing.
years, 40 years ago now.
Yeah, that whole thing and All Good Things was basically all the stuff that was going on. So he wasn't responsible for the anomaly, the temporal anomaly in the Devron system. That was actually, you know, honestly, I'm not even sure exactly how it started, but basically Picard is responsible for that in the 3 different time periods, and Q is having him shift to kind of help him figure that out. And I liked how Q at the end of that whole thing, he starts off very menacing. He's like, "Oh, you're the one, you know, you're the one that's going to be destroying humanity, not me." But I liked how he brings up, like, you know, all this is going to happen. You know what's going to happen? Well, anti-time comes in, and if you're religious, turn this off now. Everybody, we go back to the primordial pool where we all sprang. And nothing but, you know, gelatin and proteins and all that. And he's like, like, this is what humanity is, nothing but goo. And because of the nature of the anti-time, the proteins are not synthesizing together to form the first, you know, life form and all that. And because of that, you know, life will never exist and everything. And so, yeah, that was actually very educational for me. I've never learned about that. But yeah, him basically, like, you know, basically helping Picard out. Just you totally feel different about the character when the show ends, and he tells Picard, the reason why I did this was to help you see the various possibilities of existence that's out there. Or I forget if that's how he worded it. Do you remember how it's like it was about existence? Like the possibilities of existence.
Yeah, it's about the possibilities of existence. And no matter what, like, it's been so long since I've watched that episode, I can't remember what the specifics of that dialogue. I could probably pull it up and read it, but no, I'm not going to. The thing is that
tachyon beams and anti-time, and yeah,
he's constantly doing what the Shakespearean fool does, what Mephistopheles does. It's it's the trickster character whose purpose on the surface seems to be to cause problems and sometimes comical situations, but there's always something more behind it. And there's always an attempt to bring awareness to something higher. Even with the incident with the Borg in Q Who, when he transport them all to the Borg, and then they come back, and he's like, I get it. I understand what you were trying to tell us, but did you have to do it at the cost of so many lives? And then Q goes, I love that quote there. Come on, it's such a good one.
You can't take a bloody nose, go back and crawl into your bed.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what he said. She shut down Picard right there.
Yes, if you can't take a little nosebleed, perhaps you should, crawl under your bed at home, or go home and crawl under your bed. It's not safe here. I forgot what it was.
It's wondrous.
Yes,
and I forget how he said it. It was a great closing before he vanishes.
I've got it because I actually pulled it up before this. He says, if you can't take a little bloody nose, maybe you ought to go back home and crawl under your bed. It's not safe out here. It's wondrous, with treasures to satiate desires, both subtle and gross.
Oh,
but it's not for the faint of heart.
Where is that from? Is that from Shakespeare, or where's
no? That is original.
That's
Q.
That is such great.
Isn't it good?
That's so good. It's
so good. I like, and the thing is, like, when do you find people putting that much work into a television series? Like, this is what was on TV in the 90s. Every week, a new episode. How come we can't do this today when people are they were writing these episodes in 1 week and coming up with this kind of language. You had people who were experienced in literature, who had enough background in it to be able to, at the very least, mimic the language of Chaucer. And, like, let's see, who did he? Okay. The guy who played Q, John Delancey, he modeled the character after Lord Byron, Shakespeare's Fool, and Goethe's Mephistopheles.
Okay.
I mean, so it makes perfect sense that he would speak in a way that would be reminiscent of those characters. There would have to be some literary prowess to whoever is writing his dialogue, and you could see it in moments like that. That final speech is just so good. What does he say at the very end? Oh, you know what? Just do this. Go online and look at the last thing that the last conversation between Q and Picard, not in Picard. So, okay,
I love you. I love you, Picard. You were my favorite. That's how Picard season 2 ends. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. And then he dies, but then he doesn't die.
Q outside of TNG is a joke.
Yeah, I was okay with him in Voyager. I know a lot of people don't agree with that.
No, he was not.
Okay.
I will disagree.
All right.
Q was reduced in a lot of ways. He never demonstrated being what he was in, for instance, the final episodes of TNG, or even the first episode of TNG, where your humanity is on trial, but at the same time, it's not like they're really on trial. It's more like he wants you to know that you're being watched because you are about to cross a certain threshold. We want you to cross the threshold. I'm waiting for you to do it. And there's a coaxing going on there that is just so magnetic. Somebody just said that DS9 was the worst appearance of Q. Yeah,
Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard. I know you're more easy. You're more easy to provoke. That scene never gets old. That episode was a follow up to Cupid, or was it Cupid? Yeah, Cupid.
Yeah, Cupid.
Cupid and Captain's Holiday, because they brought the character back of Vosh. Yeah.
Which actually I liked when Q came in with Vosh, but still, again, it was one of those silly episodes. He had 2 very silly episodes in TNG. And the rest were mostly not silly. Mm-hmm. And that's 8 episodes of Q being Q and doing really interesting things. And so I think he's just a character that was done so well in TNG and not well in any other series. Anything that came after TNG, it's not there.
I'm totally with you there. The character, kind of went down. Kind of went down the stink hole after that. I still enjoyed the Voyager episodes he was in. I thought the episode Death Wish with Quinn was a decent one. I was just like, how are they going to get past the fact that, the Voyager's trying to get home, and Q can just, if you saw Q who, snap his finger and they'll be home. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you there that Q after that was just, a joke. So, and I think they should have now that I think about it, they probably should have left him well alone after All Good Things.
Anything that solidified what he was as he is an understandable entity, I think is a mistake. I think keeping him mysterious was the best thing that TNG did with him, is that he was so mysterious you could not know or even fathom what he's supposed to be. So like when they had one of the silly episodes, which it was mostly okay, but it was still just a silly episode, was Deja Q when he gets expelled. He gets expelled. You meet another member of the Continuum. I kind of wished we never knew if there were other members of the Continuum, that it was like, are there more? We don't know, because he could talk about the Continuum like it's we Q, like how they always refer to each other as Q. I like that. But you almost never want to meet another one, because if you are omnipotent and you are all knowing and you are outside of time, how are there multiple entities? You want this to all be a mystery. And anytime that they took that away, like even True Q, which is when there was the girl who was the child of two Qs, that even though that explored some interesting things, I still didn't like that it made the Q a limited being. It like you can have children, so it means you can not exist and then suddenly exist. No, make it so mysterious you just don't know. I mean, it's better.
Yeah, Q was supposed to be ageless, ageless, and probably always existed or something. Or at least that's how the earlier episodes described him, or how he described, or how he's
omnipotent, all knowing and all being. So giving him any kind of limitations is always going to, in my mind, be counter to what the character was defined as from the start.
Yeah.
So
I personally think it's because of this, because of how Star Trek is very, very anti-religious. So I think they're trying to avoid the God thing as much as they're trying to avoid the God thing as much as possible. And that's why they even make omnipotent beings, like you said, limited. And I think that's why they did that with Q and all that. So
I think it dismisses, when you do that, it dismisses the scope of untapped realization, which would be the God character, the existence of a God. So if we know this much of science and it's infinite, to portray something as that infiniteness, that omnipotence, and say, what if we have a character that represents that? It reinforces the idea that there is so much more out there. There is so much that we can't even possibly fathom. Like there's a level of consciousness that we can't even conceive of. And to minimize that into something that is tangible or limited, like they can have children or they can get expelled from the Continuum, or there's more than one, it limits that, and it makes it seem like a smaller being. You want this to be something that represents the unknown. Like Q is the representation of the unknown that might someday be known.
Yeah.
And
and incorporeal, basically incorporeal, and as Spock would say, life and not as we know it. Gotta answer this question. So do you know why all aliens in Star Trek are humanoid? Yeah, there's an episode called The Chase.
Yes.
There's an episode called The Chase.
They're from the same origin species.
Yep. Basically.
I love that episode. That's a fun one.
Yeah, it was basically like, first it was like the murder mystery of Picard's mentor in archaeology finds out that he found this thing, and then it's a race against the Cardassians, the Klingons, and the Romulans to find this artifact and determine the truth and all that. And yeah, it was an interesting episode. They brought the woman that played the shapeshifter in Deep Space Nine to play the holographic ancient humanoid. So yeah. Have you watched these? By the way, have you watched?
It's been years. I've watched all of them, but no, I haven't watched all of them. But Deep Space Nine and Voyager, but I've only watched those like once and never really again. And only because I was just so in love with TNG. I was like,
Deep Space Nine is, I think, up there is up there in the same tier as the TNG and the original Star Trek films. I'd like to say, I think the original Star Trek series is my favorite, but because of its third season and because of parts of its second season, it's unfortunately lower tier. Now the first season I think is at the same tier as is TNG and DS9, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I feel, yeah. So I mean, yeah, Deep Space Nine is one of those shows. You watch it, you get so attached to all the characters and the side characters, and by the time the show ends, you're like, and this doesn't happen to me that often when I watch a show, but if you watch an entire show and you feel sad that the show is going to end, the show did something right.
Yeah,
in my opinion. Same with Cowboy Bebop. Same with a few other anime shows that I've really grown attached to. It's just when you feel bad that the show's going to end, or you don't want the show to end, and you're getting heebie-jeebies as the end approaches, even though you've seen the show a billion times. I think the writers did something truly special. I think TNG is. I feel the same way about TNG.
Yeah, TNG is the way that it wraps up. To me, it felt like they could have probably taken the series a lot longer. I'm not really sure specifically why they decided to end it when they did. I don't know if there was a reason for ending it when they did, but it's only
TNG because
7 or 8 seasons. It's only 7 seasons, right?
Yeah. So TNG ended because the actors were making too much money and they wanted to make more Star Trek shows. And well, they were developing Voyager. I think they started developing Voyager like during season 6. And then, Jerry Taylor was going to leave. Jerry Taylor was running Star Trek TNG season 7, and then she would have taken over. She would have went over to Voyager. She was one of the co-creators of Voyager. And you bring a new crew with a new captain, and and pay them less compared to the TNG actors.
That's true.
So I mean, it's all about money. It's all about money. I mean, they could have made more seasons, but I feel seasons 3, 4, and 5, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel. 3, 4, and 5, and parts of 6 are peak TNG. I think season 7 was a major step down, and had they made a season 8, I think it would have been the same as season 7. Would have been a step down, in my opinion.
I have to wonder with season 7. Because let me look at which episodes were in 7.
Remember Sub Rosa with Beverly Crusher and her grandmother's boyfriend Ghost?
But you know what? There's one of those in every season. I mean, not that bad, but
there was another one where Data wears a mask and then he becomes possessed by all these ancient
the god
aliens
or
something. That I thought that was kind of dumb. There was a good one where Data has amnesia and he helps save a town from poisoning, but I forget what that was based off of.
That was
called
7.
Thine Own Self. That was called Thine Own Self.
Wasn't that in 7? Was that 6 or 7?
That was 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So that same episode. So the A plot was Data, and the B plot was Deanna Troi trying to earn the commander rank, and she had to learn how to manage, being command of the bridge and all that. So she was going through that, and Riker was kind of helping her through it, and she was like, why am I failing? It's because you didn't do this, or this. And, there's, I don't remember if they touched the no-win scenario like Kirk, like they do in Wrath of Khan, but it was something along those lines where, command is a tough thing. There's so many decisions you got to make. And, while you're in charge and all that. So, but that was the other plot. But I'm trying to think, season 7. So
I'm looking at the list of season 7 right now. So this was the part 2 of Descent.
Yeah, that was awful. Descent was a terrible.
It was Lore taking over the Borg. See, okay, the Borg is another great creation of TNG. The hive mind, where any appendage could be severed from the whole and become its own whole, and they sort of blew it. I mean, not with Hugh going back and like creating, breaking away part of the Borg. Yeah. But with having Lore go in and step in as now I lead the Borg, like don't limit it like that. There should now be different branches of the Borg. There's still like the original that has been untampered with.
Yes.
Hugh did not touch it. Lore did not touch it, and then the stupid queen from the movie did not touch it. It's still there.
The stupid queen. I like how you said that. The stupid queen. Yeah, the queen was a bad idea.
It was horrible. It was terrible. The hive mind is so much more interesting.
The Q, Q Who. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Q, who I think was when the Borg were at their most terrifying, because all you knew was that they could adapt and that they continually regenerate. They somehow they didn't in that episode they didn't assimilate yet. Assimilating didn't happen until Picard, and Best of Both Worlds. But they had children. They had in that episode they had nurseries.
They found the
so they
babies,
reproduced.
Yeah. But the thing is like it was such a great concept. And sometimes I feel like the writers wanted to do certain things and then they thought, we can do that with the Borg. Like, let's bring in an enemy that we already have a great fear of and let's have it be the Borg. Whereas the Borg should have remained its own thing. I think that the thing that they did with Hugh was probably the most interesting. That was the best, to sever him from the whole, create individuality or inspire individuality, and then let him go back. Yeah. And then that ends up creating problems. Like, that's fine. But to have somebody decide, I'm going to come in and become the leader of the Borg, like you have Lore come in and do, and then you have behind all of the scenes, there was always this queen that you just never knew about. That destroys the mystique of the Borg, kind of like how humanizing Q and limiting Q destroys the mystique of Q. You want to keep the Borg this hive existence. I think that you could have had the broken away sect, like I talked about, would have worked. But like maybe Lore should have gone and only been able to influence the individualized Hugh groups, right? Because he kind of, there was a few other Borgs who became individuals too. But I can't remember what the details of that were. It's been so long since I've watched the series all the way through. But didn't he came back and introduced individuality, and there was like a schism in the Borg, right?
Yeah. So there was Hugh's group, and then there was Lore's group, and they were fighting each other and all that.
Right. But I think it would have been more interesting if Hugh came back, and then the Borg detected that individuality and was able to understand that this is going to destroy the Borg hive mind, and so never let them back. And like severed them. Like, you are a severed appendage. You are off doing your own thing, but the Borg is still its own thing. And Lore could have come into Hugh's branch and created this. It's almost like a cult, basically, where they follow Lore, and then some of them continue to follow Hugh, or to continue to be individuals. That would have been interesting, because then you can have the terror of the Borg. They can assimilate to spread themselves, but at the same time, they're super durable. They adapt really quickly. And then the real Borg is untouched. So you have the original enemy, who is still terrifying in his own way, is off untouched by this, but then you can do the things that you wanted to. But I think that the writers had instances where they wanted to do certain things, and then they were like, well, what if Lore becomes the leader of this, group, and they're really scary, and now we have to have the Enterprise facing this group that is terrifying. Well, let's just have that be the Borg. Oh no, now you've ruined the Borg, And then the same thing with the Queen. What if we have a queen of a hive mind, and and then they totally retconned themselves there, because Picard recognizing the Queen made no sense. It was like,
you were on board the ship. You were on board that Borg cube, and during Best of Both Worlds, it was destroyed. How does she respond? You think in such three-dimensional terms, Picard. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
It's stupid. But I'll agree that there were a lot of weak episodes in 7, but to wrap it up the way that they did was so freaking good. And I do like the potential of the descent. I like, because that was the first time we saw Hugh again, and I thought being able to see what happened after he left was interesting.
He developed more of his humanity. He started emoting. He started emoting a lot more like a human,
or like the very thing that what was the name of his episode?
Iborg.
Okay. So they find this Borg teenager, basically, and separate him from everybody else. He's injured, so they heal him. And then he's interacting with the crew, but he's been severed from the Borg, and he creates attachments to the crew. He creates an identity for himself. He's an individual. I am Hugh. And then the crew is faced with, we need to return him. He can't stay with us. We need to return him to the Borg. What if we just put a virus in him, that not a virus like a disease, but I mean like a computer virus that kills all of the Borg everywhere. And then they're faced with that and they go, you know what? We can't. That is against our moral code. We should not do that. So they send him back not as a weapon, but as a saved prisoner of war who's then returned to the other side. But because he was given individuality, the thing that they decided not to do ended up happening anyway. They decided not to destroy the Borg, but this did create a Borg offshoot. I don't know. There's so much more I would have done. I feel like there was this is one of the reasons I love TNG. Is I swear I could come up with so many ideas just from examining specific episodes and going, how would I have done this differently? That is one of the things I would have done differently. I would have been like, okay, let's explore Hugh's effect on the Borg. How would the Borg deal with this? Suddenly, certain branches are attaining individuality. Cut off the arm before the infection spreads to the torso, right?
Yeah.
So now they're off on their own. And then you can continue to do things with the Borg being terrifying. And yeah, anyway, so I could go on and on about that. But yeah, okay, so that was that.
So the Borg, so you saying that, I mean, so you saying the Borg, leave the normal Borg, the ones that assimilate, that still want to assimilate everybody, everything. Well, there's still a thing in Voyager. And of course, First Contact with the Queen. Oh, you're gonna hate you'll hate. They bring back the Borg Queen like several times in Voyager.
In Picard.
In Picard.
See, I don't remember much of. I think Voyager's the one I remember the least amount of, except for the Q stuff because I've gone back recently and
they repurposed the Hugh. They repurposed the Hugh storyline and created 7 of 9.
7 of 9. Yeah, I know that. Well, I did watch it, but it's been so long. I know didn't they bring Hugh back in Picard?
They did, and they killed him. They brought him back. He had none of the cybernetic implants. It was just basically Jonathan Del Arco with maybe, a little bit of makeup, a little bit of cybernetic makeup here, like Jerry Ryan, and then they killed him off. The Romulan chick, hot Romulan chick in that season, that 7 of 9 kills by kick stomping her into a pit in the Borg cube, because it's Star Trek. New Trek is basically Star Wars now. I mean, I'll be honest. There was one.
Really like how dark Trek has gotten. I think it's lost sight of what Gene Roddenberry created, which was this hopeful future.
They turned it into a fantasy. They turned it into Star Wars. They turned it into they copied every other science fiction franchise except for Star Trek. Now, one thing that Star Trek, especially shows like Voyager and Enterprise, did was they repurposed themselves. But I would rather have them repurpose themselves than repurpose other franchises that don't make sense. Like, how the Picard season 3 was given praise by a lot of the very critical YouTubers, content creators. And I watched it. I wanted to see it for myself to see, is this a return to form? I watched it with Steve. I watched it with Prophet the Dragon. I watched it with a few other people. It wasn't. There were a few good moments. They brought the entire crew back, so we get to see them all together for the first time in years.
Easter eggs do not make a good show. Sorry.
They brought back
member berries and Easter eggs.
They brought back Ro. So Ro was missing.
I like her.
So remember season 7 episode Preemptive Strike, where she joins the Maquis. She's like, they have her as a mole in the Maquis to find out what they're up to, what their next terrorist activity is going to be. And then she's with them. She witnesses one of the leaders get killed indiscriminately by the Cardassians, and she ultimately sabotages everything that Picard put together and leaves and joins the Maquis, and we don't see her again after that episode. She doesn't show up in Voyager or Deep Space Nine. We don't know what happened to her, basically, because in Deep Space Nine, the Dominion come in and they destroy the Maquis when they become allies with the Cardassians in season 5 of Deep Space Nine. So we don't know what happened to her until Picard season 3. She comes back. She's a member of Starfleet security, and her and Picard, actually, the one scene I actually really liked in Picard season 3 was Picard seeing her for the first time since we saw that episode, and they revisit that episode and they revisit like what the hell were you thinking and all that. And well, they kill Ro off. I'll say that they do kill her off in a not so great way. But that scene where they reunite was actually really good in my opinion.
To bring characters back in order to kill them is not like, I think this is becoming a trope.
Yes, they did that to, you know who else they did that to? They did that to Commander Shelby. Remember Commander Shelby, the one that was up for Riker's job in Best of Both Worlds?
Oh yeah,
they brought her back just to murder her within a scene. Like
Are you serious? See, like that's ridiculous. If you you do it maybe once or twice and that's it. But if you're like, how many did we just list off? Hugh, Q, Shelby. Who was the other one? Ro.
And you know who else they brought? They brought back, but in a not so great way. They brought back Moriarty, the hologram. And so in Picard season 3, there's this station called Daystrom Station where they're keeping the remains of one of Data's copies, B4 from Nemesis. So they go on board and the Moriarty hologram. I don't think it's the hologram, the one that was in TNG. But it's a version. They brought the actor back, the original actor Daniel Davis from, if you remember, he was also the butler in Nanny.
A copy because the original
he was just like
around in a little green microchip right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so they brought him back just to be like a mouthpiece for the station. And so all Riker had to do was, this was like a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time dungeon where you have to play a musical note for a door to open. And I'm not joking. He whistled, pop goes the weasel, and the door to Data's treasure, Data's other body, the B4, opens up. Like just like that. And I'm like, that was it. That was the extent to bringing back Daniel Davis as Moriarty for that scene. What the hell? I was expecting. He was such an
interesting character. Like, what if he found out that he was in a chip and not actually out in the real world, and then he's faced with the is my life worth anything? Does it mean anything, or am I literally just somebody's memory in a hard drive? I want to be physical in the real world. Give me a body. That would have been a great episode.
Yeah, and then I think it would have been interesting had he teamed up with the crew for something that was even more existentially dangerous than.
Yeah, he's smarter than Data.
Yeah. So I think that would have been a good use of the character. They didn't. I don't think they. I mean, Terry Matalas, the showrunner for Picard, just basically brought all these characters back. Just to
bring him back and kill him off,
or bring him back and do video game stuff
interesting with them. The thing I liked about bringing up Moriarty's character was great because he appeared in which episodes? The first one was in
Elementary, Dare Data, and Ship in a Bottle.
Right,
excellent episodes.
Which seasons were they?
Seasons
which was the
2 and 6.
2 and 6. I mean, look at that. There's 3, 4, 5, 3 seasons, whole seasons in between those episodes. But they brought him back not to just here's a character from a previous season. They continued his story. He came back pissed off. I've been conscious in the holodeck waiting for you guys to keep your promise for all these years, and you've done nothing, and I'm pissed off, and now I'm taking over the ship.
It's basically well, I mean, it's like basically they making him wait in the lobby. They're making him wait in the lobby for years, basically. And he's just like,
but why didn't they continue his story? Why didn't they say, like, okay, he's been in this little cube. What was the last thing that happened to him? He got upset that he was in the lobby waiting for so long. Well, how about he's so smart and we've put him in this microchip. He thinks he is out exploring the universe with the love of his life for enough for, I forget what it is, for 500 lifetimes or something. What if he discovers that he is not in the real world and he's like, I want something real. I've thought about it, and you know what? This is not good enough. I need reality. I want a body. Like then the idea of giving AI something that has existed only in digital form, giving them an actual body, a physical body, like that. There's things that can be explored there that they didn't.
That whole episode, that Ship in the Bottle episode, was just you're like
Keeping
what
him
you're
for
you're like what is real and what is not. And you're doing this is from the crew. Like they think they left the holodeck, but they're still in the holodeck. It's one of those type of episodes.
I love that. It was so fun. And that was that was a part 2. That was a sequel story.
Yeah.
And they came up with something more clever than the original story. The original story was make a villain that is smarter than Data, that can outsmart Data. And then they did that.
And captures
season.
Dr. Pulaski.
Yeah, I like Dr. Pulaski. I don't know why people don't like her. I think she was great. I think that she added some dimension to the crew. Like you have this very young look. Picard may be old to some people, but I mean, I didn't think he was that old. He was to me just as much a part of the crew as everybody else. But bringing her in here gave somebody at closer to his years in wisdom, because that's the one thing that Picard had above everybody else, was he had a little bit more wisdom than they are, because that's why they would defer to him in the end. He would have the wise words at the end. To have somebody like her, but she's also an explorer at heart. She's a scientist. She's curious, and I like that. And they didn't have much for Picard to bounce off of. And I feel like they should have kept her around for longer, specifically for that purpose.
They wanted a McCoy. They wanted a McCoy, and Pulaski was heavily inspired from McCoy, basically, because McCoy was
obvious.
basically.
But then they didn't do with her what they did with McCoy, which was be the.
I mean, he was the heart of the original 3 characters. You had Kirk, you had Spock, and you had McCoy.
Yeah.
Kirk was the balance. Spock was the brains, the dispassionate, and McCoy was the human. McCoy was the human guy, as DC Fontana puts it. So he was the heart. He was the heart of the 3 of the.
No, I liked her. I thought she was good. I thought she was a good one to have around.
It's a shame they never brought her back. It would have been interesting to see a scene with her and Crusher together, see how they got along and everything.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Maybe to bring them together in some sort of a way where we've got because she went off to be the chief of
Starfleet
medicine
Medical.
at the academy or a hospital or something.
Starfleet Medical, yeah.
Starfleet Medical. Okay.
At least that's how. At least they didn't kill her off. So they fired her, but they didn't kill her off like they did Tasha Yar. I guess when you quit a show, break a contract, they don't want you back, so they kill you off. Well, because it was Star Trek, because it was Star Trek and science fiction, they were able to find ways to do it. So, speaking of finding ways to do it, a lot of people, including a certain Quentin Tarantino, consider yesterday's Enterprise to be the best episode of TNG. I'm curious where your thoughts on that episode is.
It's definitely a good one. It's a really memorable one. It's one of the least obnoxious screwing around with alternate timelines that I think I've ever seen. I get very bored with alternate timelines. I think that the multiverse is the ultimate version of the alternate timeline. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But this was good because it had long-term consequences. So Tasha Yar going with the ship into the anomaly and dying in battle, whatever. She didn't die. She ended up being captured, and she was kept as a prisoner of war, and she was possibly either in a relationship or raped, and now her daughter is the enemy. Like these are interesting things for me. And you see that's what they did. They didn't just have her come back in for just put your face on Star Trek again for, one episode. No, they decided, okay, we're going to have her come in. She does something, and then this thing has long-term consequences. We will see the effects of this later on. They actually thought about things that they had done in previous seasons and said, let's continue that story. What happens next? What happened as a consequence of Tasha going into the anomaly in this alternate timeline? And they've restored now the original timeline, but she was in that ship instead of this one. So now what is the situation? Like
what did you think of Sela?
Sela,
Romulan, her daughter.
I mean, I think it's a great idea.
The product of her going back in time and the Romulan.
No, I remember who she is. I think she's a good villain, and I thought it was a good way to keep her in the story.
I was surprised. I mean, what they should have did with Picard season 3, instead of bringing back the Borg Queen as the ultimate villain, which was the stupidest thing ever.
Bring back her.
Yeah, so not only did they bring back the Borg Queen in Picard season 3, they brought back the shapeshifters from Deep Space Nine, but made them really stupid and everything. And they they forgot that they're part of the Dominion, and they tried to come up with some half-baked story of why they were separated from the Dominion in the first place. And then you find out that at the last 2 episodes, the Borg Queen somehow controlled them. I'm like, I don't think the Borg Queen can control the shapeshifters from the Dominion. So, and they never explained how that worked and all that. So, what I think they should have done with Picard season 3, I've said this. I've said this to a bunch of people. So they gave Picard a son in season 3. The guy that was in Aragon, the actor that was in Aragon, they brought him in season 3 to play his son. So apparently, Beverly. Reason why we didn't see Beverly for years was because she was raising her son on her own without telling Picard that he ever had a son, which I think was terrible in my opinion. But the whole point of season 3 was him coming to he now has a family at the end of it because, well, in Generations, he was the last Picard and he had nobody. And because there was another episode that Generations completely reduced relatively great. It was one of my favorite Picard moments. Family, or Best of Both Worlds Part 3.
No, they didn't are you saying they retcon that?
No, they didn't retcon it.
Because they die off screen, and we hear about
they did. Yeah, so
remember Picard mourns the death of his nephew.
Yes, so they in my opinion, I don't think they should have did that, or if they did, they should have found a way to kind of to bring him back or something, because I feel like they did disservice to that episode with Generations. And what I think Picard season 3 should have found a way to. We don't see Renee die. It's all hearsay, and it's all.
He should have been
reported.
Alive.
I think Renee should have been alive.
What? How did he die? I forgot. It's been a while since
they burned him and his father, and
they burned in a fire.
They burned in a fire. So apparently, the Chateau Picard burned down, even though somehow Picard's living in Chateau Picard in season 1. So I guess he had it rebuilt or something. I don't know. But Chateau Picard burns down and takes the life of his brother's family, basically. So he's the last living Picard, and he cries in Generations and says, "I'm the last Picard. There will be no more Picards." And I mean, it was a great scene from Patrick Stewart. It's something I'll never forget that scene. But it really did disservice to Family, because Family ends with Renee looking at the stars and wanting to be part of Starfleet to kind of follow his uncle's legacy.
Yeah.
And there was an opportunity. I think there was a prime opportunity to bring Renee back as an adult, and basically have him be separated. He would have been abducted. In my opinion, the people that burned down Picard's chateau were people that still had grievances against Picard, like Sisko did in Deep Space Nine. People that were victims of Wolf 359, families of victims that died in Wolf 359. They all blame some of them blame Picard for it, and so they burned down the chateau. But I guess one of the perpetrators sees little Renee crawling out of the jumps out gets thrown out the window by his father, Robert, and one of them just takes pity and is like, okay, this kid has nothing to do with our thing. So it's one of those cases where it's one of those. And I was thinking of the trope of the battlefield, where this one warrior comes and kills this family, and he finds a kid, and instead of killing the kid, he raises the kid.
Yeah,
basically, I was thinking of that type of trope, but with Renee and whoever raises him and all that. And so by the time Picard is reunited with Renee is already middle age. He's already like 40. He has his own son who is about early teens. And I don't have it fully fleshed out. I've been meaning to write it. But Renee would die. Renee would ultimately die. And his
You're
son.
gonna do the same thing. You're gonna kill off the characters from the original series.
Well, there would be a redemption. Renee would have a problem with Picard. Renee's like, "Why don't you ever look for me? Why don't you ever look for me?" And so there would be that struggle, there would be that tension, that conflict, and then the conflict. I don't know exactly how it would play out, but the conflict would resolve itself. Renee would forgive him as he's dying. He saves Picard. He ultimately saves Picard, and he's like, and then his son would basically take his mantle that was originally meant for him, and he would be the one to be the next Picard and the one to take on his great uncle's legacy. And I think that would have been a better story than just giving Picard a son.
I like
Picard
that.
and Beverly
That would have been
son.
good. Yeah, I like that idea. I think so. When I found out, because I watched, I don't remember which season of Picard I watched, because I started watching one and I was like, forget it. And then all I did was go and watch the Q things. And when I saw where it was going, I was like, forget it. I'm not watching that either.
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake to have Picard in there as the protagonist in this way. I think that it would have been great to have him because it's awkward to have an old man going on these adventures, leading the way.
Yes.
It didn't feel like it should work. Like, this man probably only has enough energy to be mobile for an hour a day at most, not this. So I was hoping that when they did Picard, that it was going to be a bunch of young people, because I knew that he was supposed to be back at Chateau Picard. I remember when the promotional images were coming out with him and he had his dog, and I was like, this is going to be great. He's going to be like living at Chateau Picard, and we're going to see him being like some sort of a professor at the academy, or something.
Yeah.
But he'll have young people that he mentors, and he advises them in that role. And the new heroes are actually the people who want to be him. And then at the end of the series, I was hoping it'd be one season, they would go off on their own adventure, and we would have had like the next generation, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just what I would have done in my head. I think it's I do think it was a mistake what they did, making Picard the protagonist in this. As much as I love the idea of having this, okay, we're going to create a role that an old man can fill.
Yeah.
The role that they made was not for an old man.
No.
It was not a believable one, not one that I could.
And not one that Patrick Stewart could helm, in my opinion.
No,
and
you know what?
He was Picard was very infirm at that point. And but by the way, hold that thought. I got to read this. Salty Traveling Sea for $5. Here's some money for punching Gray. Good work. So I went to Japan. I met Gray. His channel is Wakizashi Sea House. I've done a lot of Star Trek stuff with him, original series stuff with him.
Oh, cool.
And I got to meet him in person. And Salty told me to punch Gray. So I took a picture of myself punching Gray, even though he's a master of judo, or was it jujitsu?
Nice.
I forget. But yeah. So yeah, right. Thank you, Corey. But Picard was robbed of agency. Like, I would have been okay with him as a protagonist, but they robbed him of any agency. He was different.
Well, they
He was
had
just
to,
old,
because
feeble.
he was too old to do things
Yeah,
for himself.
He was just old, feeble, and unsure of himself. And I'm just like, I've seen older characters not be like that, So I mean, it was just like Jake Skywalker all over again.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do at this point? I mean, I understand the fear of creating something new, and I also understand the desire to continue Star Trek. But in my opinion, every time I've tried to dive into something more recent of Star Trek, I just get the same impression. This is so dark now. This does not feel like what I really loved about Star Trek, which was that there was this hopefulness to it, that it was the idea. Starfleet was the ideal. It's again kind of like with Q. It's something that's probably unattainable, but the idea that maybe we've reached that, but that humans are still flawed, but that we still pursue this ideal and it's worth fighting for, I think is lost in a lot of what I'm detecting in modern Trek. And I you know what did have it, sort of, but it was from a comical perspective, was the Orville.
Okay.
I think the Orville had the spirit of TNG.
It did.
It absolutely explored things that I did not expect. A silly comedy by Seth MacFarlane. Who was it? Is that who it was?
Yep.
Who did that? He's clearly a real true fan of Star Trek because he did a lot of the things that I was hoping Star Trek would do. For instance, sex and porn addiction in the holodeck. They never took Star Trek Next Generation to that. They did a little bit with Barclay and his fantasies.
Yeah.
And then with
Pursuits,
Waxana Troy, putting her on the holodeck to satiate her menopause horniness.
Oh yeah, okay.
But they never actually said, how would this affect a family dealing with a porn addiction or a sex addiction or something.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, that was a funny that Boris episode was.
That was hilarious. But then they did some really good stuff in there. They actually explored real issues that made you think. But then of course, they had all the humor. So a lot of people didn't take the Orville seriously. But I feel like
there was that episode
was a Star Trek fan fiction in disguise.
It was basically I think he wanted to do a Star Trek show and CBS said no, so he went into it and
it's just called the Orville.
Yeah, so Fox, like, because he was he's a comedy writer, he had to sell it as a comedy, but it was actually a science. It was a thought-provoking science fiction show in the process. I wasn't a big fan of the third season. I thought the third season touched on some it touched on some very problematic things for people, very, very divisive. But the episode, the third episode of season 1 showed that this wasn't just a comedy. They took some ideas, some darker ideas from, remember the Outcast? Remember the Outcast from TNG season 5, the one with the trans race?
Yeah.
And it ended with Riker tried to help her, and he couldn't ultimately. And then because of the Prime Directive, he couldn't interfere.
Yeah.
But there was an equivalent episode in the Orville called About a Girl, where it wasn't really about. It was about them changing the sex.
Yeah,
so that,
I remember that. That was a great episode.
Yeah, and it's funny that the reason why they wrote it because of evil. Conservatives, even though it was something that not the conservatives do. I hate to bring politics into this, but because Hollywood's is very liberal, but it was an interesting idea of what could happen if it was the other way around, and people forced people like everyone on all the Mocklins are male.
Yeah,
and
no,
if you're born a female, you're not.
I remember because I watched that episode with my mom because my mom's a big Star Trek fan too. Next Generation. They were the ones watching it when I was a kid, and so I saw it through them.
Did they grow up with the original? Did they like the original series?
No,
and the
not
original
as much.
Movies.
Okay. Not as much. I think the second one, Next Generation, is what hooked my parents. They loved it, and for the same reasons that I love it above all the others as well. But we were watching the Orville because I was like, Mom, I've heard that the Orville is basically the Next Generation, but with comedy. And so we gave it a try. And it was when we got to that episode that I remember going like, holy crap, that was a very good episode. Like this was a drama with real serious issues in it. That was the third episode. I'm just looking at it right now because it was 1, 2, 3.
They did borrow a lot of borrow a lot of ideas from TNG and especially the original series. But
it wasn't a carbon copy, and that's something that was smart. You don't make the same episode.
Yeah.
You explore in change it up a bit, and explore from a new angle and in a different way. This was mostly courtroom proceedings, right? About a Girl was mostly in the courtroom where we saw the big drama happening.
Yes, correct.
Because they were debating what do we do. That was a great episode.
It was just, and when you say courtroom, I didn't think of it, but Measure of a Man is another example of that type of compelling writing. So
it's all in the dialogue. You don't. That was I think that was one of the ways you could see the big difference between TNG and the original series is that there were huge chunks of episodes, if not entire episodes, where the drama was carried entirely in the dialogue.
Yes.
And
there was very little, when you think TNG, there was very little action. Most of the stuff that was happening was, character driven, situational drama, science experiments. A lot of the reason why episodes came about, the setup for almost every episode was they were conducting an experiment on some star, and then they either encounter some anomaly or they have to go to some place, and the people have, the people that are at this place, this space or this planet are, there's an issue with them that has to be solved, or they're bad, and our heroes are in trouble or something like that. So like there was a few episodes where Data was hijacked by a scientist, like completely possessed by a scientist. This was season 2. I forget the name of the episode. But there was that episode, and there was another episode where Data is kidnapped by a collector.
That was a great episode.
The most toys, and that was a messed up episode.
That was messed up. I remember when I remember feeling like there's something very powerful happening in the subtext of the writing when the collector threatened the other servant girl.
Yes.
And then Data complied.
Her. Yeah, and then he ultimately murders. Yes,
and I was like, to me, I'd never seen at that point somebody using the threat of harming somebody else in a way that I felt really believable. Like, okay, Data is now your slave, and he will do whatever you want because he knows that if he doesn't, you're going to kill an innocent other person. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, and the laws of Isaac Asimov's law of robotics. I think it's the second or third law that requires that android that requires a living being cannot harm or cannot allow another living being to be harmed, or a human being to be harmed. I don't know, that might not be it, but it's something up there. I think it's there, because I mean Data's an android. Data doesn't have the emotion chip yet at that point. At least, no.
It was part of his programming. He cannot cause harm to others. He cannot.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines, because he can kill, but he doesn't usually. I think through most of the series, if you watch, Data doesn't actually kill anybody.
Unless he's lore in disguise. He's either lore in disguise or he's hijacked by another entity or something like that.
Wasn't that the conclusion of that episode with the collector when he gets beamed out, but he was about to fire?
He was gonna murder the guy. The guy killed the woman. The guy killed the servant.
Yeah, and then Data they beam him out as he's about to fire, and they're like, "Hey, there's a weapon that's been discharged. And you're like, "Okay, disable it." So while Data is being beamed back to the ship, they disarm his weapon. So he appears, and he had discharged his weapon. Yes. And they're like, "Your weapon was set to, like, you were discharging the weapon set to kill." And he's like, "Oh, it must have been a misfire." And you just like never quite know. Like, I don't think that it was intentional, but I love that, again, they never answer that question. It's just the mystery. And to me, people really underestimate the power of an unanswered question. I think that for a while, people were doing it too frequently. Like, okay, Inception, the whole spinning the top at the very end and not answering that. I feel like that was the moment where people realized we don't like this anymore. We don't want the unanswered question anymore. And now we don't see unanswered questions used in storytelling very often. It is just straightforward, tell us everything. We don't want to leave anything left out. This is why you see a lot of telling, I think, also.
Yeah, and that's a problem, because part of the appeal of the unanswered question is it gets people talking.
Yeah,
it gets people. It drives conversations. People have their own theories on what happened. I would get into conversations about like 2001, because if you ever seen 2001, you're like, what the hell is this movie about? And
it's funny you mentioned that. We just had that playing in my house recently. My brother had never seen it. My brother's staying here for a while, and he was watching it, and he's like, what is this shit? And I'm like, this is it. This is the movie.
It's a movie about
we're watching for 45 minutes. Nothing's happened. I was like, yep. And just keep watching.
Well, things do happen. It's very, very slow. It's very Stanley Kubrick. There's a lot. Even though the movie that movie drew me back. The movie has always drawn me back. I watched it as a kid. I'm like, what? There's nothing happening. There's no dialogue. And then something about it brought me back to watch it. And I watched more of it, and I watched more of it on subsequent watches. And I finally finished it. I'm like, what is this? The last 30 minutes, there's no dialogue. You're seeing nothing but a bunch of colors and landscapes and various filters. And you see these diamond things that are flying with you. You're like, what is going on here? And all of a sudden, our main character's in a room, a French room with lighted tiles underneath, obviously a soundstage, and then he becomes a baby and he's orbiting the Earth. Like, what did just happen? What just happened here? So, and it's stuff like that just drives conversations. I mean, and then of course things that haven't been answered yet. Game of Thrones, people have their theories. Wheel of Time, Dane has told me this several times that as the books were coming out, there was a lot of mystery. There was a lot of things that people were wondering what was going to happen next that were teased. If you read closely, things were teased in earlier books that pay off later on. That's why a lot of people love the second read of Wheel of Time. It's like there's a moment in book 9 that I haven't gotten to yet, but I know what happens at the end of book 9, and it was teased in book 7. It was teased very briefly in book 7, but if you pay attention, you're like, if something is brought up, like a character wonders about something, you're like, okay, that's going to happen. It's Chekhov's gun. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in some way in the future. It might not happen in this book. It might not happen in the next book, but it'll happen maybe 2 books from now or 3 books from now. You never know. So, but yeah, it kept, and that's why that series was successful when it came out. That's why it sold millions of copies. So me bitching about it now is just because, well, I had too high expectations. What can I say? My expectations were too high. I was expecting Song of Ice and Fire stuff, and instead of Robert Jordan, which is very different, but he's a very different beast. So
I think back to the unanswered question.
Yeah.
People nobody well, I know this is how conversations go though. I mean, that's fine. Sometimes you go on a tangent and like, this is the new path now. It's not the tangent. This is where we're going. But there's so much that comes with the unanswered question. The idea of it that is not being done today. For instance, a lot of TNG would present a moral conundrum and then present both sides of it. They would do something with it in the show, but then they would still be left with, we don't know if that was the right thing.
Yeah.
And they would leave it at that. They would not necessarily take a stance. Sometimes they would just say, we did the best that we could with what we had, and we're still not even sure we did what's right. And I think nowadays people are reluctant to do that. And that was what I liked about the Orville, specifically that episode about a girl, because it did that. It did the thing where we did the best with what we had, but we're not sure we did the right thing.
It did, but it didn't end how we wanted. The thing is, it didn't end how we wanted it. We wanted their child to not be changed, and they ultimately went with it. And it was interesting what they did.
But they presented all the sides of the argument, very good arguments from both sides. I think there's a desire, I think, to straw man the opposing argument when people are writing. They want to make the bad guy like easy to defeat, which to me means he's not a very strong bad guy. And that's what TNG in many cases, and what the Orville did in the few episodes there is that they did not present the opposing argument as not having a good argument. They said, what is the best that they've got versus the best that we've got? Otherwise, if it was so obvious, if the answer was so obvious, there wouldn't be a debate.
Yes.
I don't think that the debate would exist. I think that the reason why moral conundrums exist is because there's arguments.
There's always that doubt. There's always that uncertainty.
Yeah, and
that's
I think
part of the human condition.
There's a relucance to do that now, to say we're not sure. I think
it's because I don't think I think they underestimate their viewers' intelligence, in my opinion.
I think that could be it. I think actually that's probably a very strong theory on why they do this, because the level of telling that we get in like Wheel of Time is ridiculous. And I've
Because
heard
the books
it.
were anything but like the books. You had to really pay attention to piece things together. Whereas
I cannot confirm, but I have heard that a lot of times episodes are being written. What if, we have some Gen Zer or what's after
Millennial.
Gen Z? Is it millennial?
Or,
Somebody
millennials before Gen Z, then Gen Alpha.
Okay, what if we have a Gen Zer or a Gen Alpha person who's watching and they're on their phone while they're watching? And I'm like, you're writing like this? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're writing for somebody who's not even paying attention to your show. Of course, people who are paying attention are going to get annoyed.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, why are you repeating this information? Why are you saying this so bluntly instead of telling it to us, showing it to us in an interesting way or in a way that feels organic? Most of the time, characters don't walk into a room and explain what they've been doing for the last month to a bunch of people who were with them during that month.
Unless you want to lose friends, sure.
But that's just such a terrible, terrible way to write. And have you seen Severance?
I have not yet. I've heard nothing but good things about Severance.
I am going to recommend to you. It's only $7 or $8 through Amazon to add the Apple TV.
I have Apple TV, so I could.
Oh my gosh, do it! Watch the first 4 episodes. If you're not hooked after that first episode, first of all, then maybe it's not for you. But by the end of the second season, your questions are answered. It's got the mystery box to it, and a lot of people after the first season were like, "What if this is the never-ending mystery box?" No,
like Lost. Yeah.
They actually they reveal everything by the end of the second season, but nothing is ever handed to you. Nothing is ever told to you. It is all through your experience. Like you are on a journey with these characters, learning things as they are learning it. Yes, nothing is ever blatantly just said or explained. So you got to pay attention. But it's one of the only shows I've seen in the last at least 5 years that I really could not get up and walk away. I was like, I have to watch every episode right now. Like I'm going to sit here, I'm going to watch every episode. And then of course I jumped into it when season 2 had just started. And then I was like, I can't believe I have to wait a week for the next episode.
I have a TV show, good versus bad detector. It's his name is Prophet of the Dragon. So if he says something is good, it's likely that reason. If it's bad, it's likely the reason you state because of a lot of the tell, don't show and everything. And plus,
I would say it's probably the best show versus tell that I have seen in a TV show maybe ever. And it's one of the
even
best.
More than shows like The Wire and
The
Sopranos.
Oh yeah, this is a high concept science fiction thriller, and they don't explain what's happening. They have you experience it. I can't give any more hints, but the first episode and the second episode up to the title credits, like the opening credits, is you experiencing everything through the characters who are experiencing them for the first time, like are experiencing them. So you're going through what they're going through as they're going through it. And then it's all kind of like at episode 2, the opening credits, you're like, oh my gosh, I get it now. I get what's happening. And now that just opens up more questions like, okay, and there's a lot of moral conundrums in there that come up. I'm not going to give anything away. The best thing you can do is go into it knowing absolutely nothing. Just watch episode 1 and the beginning of episode 2, and you'll understand what's happening. But then you'll be like, now I want to know more about this place.
Yeah, I just know that that Adam Scott's in the show, and that it takes place in an office.
Right, but it's not. It's okay. So, have you ever seen Walter Mitty?
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Some of it.
Yeah, I've seen like scenes. The Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah, Ben Stiller. So I've said this before on other live streams, I think, but Ben Stiller has been a favorite director, producer, writer of mine for one movie only. And it was since the movie came out, and that is Walter Mitty. That is a brilliant film, and it is beautifully shot, beautifully directed. It is so heartfelt. It is a very good story. It's one of the better, most inspiring movies that I've seen. I will watch it again and again. Everyone in my family is kind of the same feeling, and we all love it in our own ways. Like, so you'll have every once in a while call somebody up and my sister's watching it, you know, I'm like, oh, you're watching Walter Mitty? Like, yeah, like just, I needed that feeling. I needed to want to go out into the world. And like, it gives you that, like, oh my gosh, I want to go on an adventure. But he demonstrated that he's an artist, but he also knows how to tell a very satisfying, good story with good characters. And so when people say,
he is? You know what else
Huh?
he is? He's a big Star Trek fan.
he is, I'm not surprised.
Yes.
So when people say, like, when I would tell people I love Ben Stiller as a writer, director, producer, I said, but I'm not talking about Tropic Thunder. I'm not talking about The Cable Guy. I'm not talking about
Dodgeball.
Zoolander.
Make me bleed my own blood.
I'm talking about, I think that he is an artist in his true soul, and he does comedy and stuff like that because it's fun and it makes him a lot of money, but he is an excellent storyteller, and he manages to touch on art just to the point that you appreciate it for being impressive, but it's not over the top where you go, oh my gosh, I can't handle, like, this is too weird, you know, too artistic for me. And he's just bringing, like, the cinematography in Severance is movie theater worthy through the whole thing, every single episode. So really give it a shot. I'm going to recommend to you watch it. It'll be one of the most immersive experiences in science fiction that you've had in a long time.
Yeah, I got a lot of shows on my docket that I have to watch. I'm behind on literally everything. I haven't consumed nearly as much. I'm a content creator and I barely consume anything. So I barely play video games. I finally got myself to watch a movie. I've been watching this movie the last couple of days. It's called The Human Condition. It's a Japanese film, epic film, a World War II epic film from the 50s that I'm currently watching. And yeah, so I'm getting myself back. I'm getting myself back into because I was in Japan. I just been really.
You're on a made in Japan binge.
Yeah, I mean, if this doesn't prove that I was in Japan, this little magnet of a
little lantern
little right here, I don't know what will. But I figure you know, you said you lived in Japan for a while.
Yeah, I was an exchange student in Japan in high school, and it was so much fun. If there's one place that I've been to already before that I would like to go back to, it would be Japan. I would travel it a lot more. I spent most of my time in Yokohama, did go to Tokyo, did go to Kamakura and a couple other little places. I forget the name of one of the towns that I went to. I didn't get to travel. Like, I wanted to go to Okinawa. There are a lot of places in Japan that I really wanted to go and see, but I didn't know much about Japan before I went. My dad worked for Nissan, and they were like, we're sending 8 people to Japan on a 8 kids to Japan on a exchange program. And I was like, oh great, I'll sign up. Like, I'm like, why not? Japan, that'd be cool. I signed up, sent in my essay why I think Japan would be a cool place to go. I literally just like Googled whatever I could. Was Google around? Yes, it was, because I remember typing stuff out and sent it in. And I was one of only 4 applicants, so I got to go.
Oh, nice.
I know. I was like, out of all the people, all the employees in Japan, only 4 people wanted to go for all of Nissan. Okay, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, so it was great. I mean, and I was living in a very like suburban. It's hard to describe, to call certain parts of Japan suburban, at least the areas I was in, like Yokohama, because it felt like a rural city, if that makes sense. I'm deep in the city, deep in the city, but they do so well with putting in parks and having greenery and making you feel like this is a very clean, not American suburbia. It's something different. And when I say parks, I mean like several acres big park of just jungle with little trails that go through. You know, people walk the trails, and so where I was staying, I was the only non-Japanese person for like at least a
several miles,
50-mile radius. I got looks everywhere that I went. And then I remember the one time I was walking to school, because it was like an hour for me to get to school. The one time I was walking, and across the street, another Caucasian person was walking in the opposite direction, and we both saw each other and pointed, and we both like let's meet up. So we both went up and met up, and turns out he was an American too, and he was there on business or something. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. And he's like, you exchange student? I'm like, yep, it's pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, like you're the first non-Japanese person I've seen like forever. It was just goofy, but it was such a great place. I love that history is still so alive there, that it is so integrated into even modern culture. I mean, even going into Tokyo, just the way that people treat each other with such civility. There's almost, I say a ritual, but it's not ritual, but it's old-fashioned manners that are still alive there today. I was safe wherever I went. I was treated like a guest wherever I went, which, you know, after living there long enough, I was like, okay, I now need to be a host when somebody comes. Like you adopt those mannerisms as well, even though everybody looks at you like you're not Japanese. But it's such a cool place. So cool. I loved it.
Oh, I want to go. I already want to go back.
How long were you there for?
I was not there long enough. I wish I would have taken all my PTO and I took 6 days off, and so I left Friday, and I didn't arrive till Sunday Japanese time, and I had to leave Saturday. That's that following Saturday, in the afternoon and everything. So, but I was only there. I was only there for 6 nights. I was only there for 6 nights. So, I went to Osaka area because I know someone that lives in Osaka.
Was that the other YouTuber?
Yeah. So his name's Angry Canadian. He's he mainly, me and him connect over. We're both big Nintendo fans, and me and him have watched a bunch of shows. We watched Shogun recently, the new show, and we watched the old show. So
I haven't seen the old one. I've seen most of the new one. Well, I don't know if I've seen most of the new one. I think I've seen the first season and some.
Yeah, so the old one was primarily from the point of view of the of Blackthorn and the English and all that, the Europeans, and the new show was more like Game of Thrones, where the new show focused more on the Japanese, the court drama, the intrigue, the political intrigue aspect of it. We don't really know much about the political intrigue in the original show. The original show was mainly was more faithful to the source material, to James Clavell's original novel.
Okay.
And it was just it was basically a love story. It was basically a love story between Blackthorn and the woman that was supposed to be kind of his guide and everything. She teaches him Japanese. It turns into a love story. Then it becomes tragedy and all that. And the original show is more faithful and more. It captures the Japanese mannerisms more accurately than the new show. The new show, the female lead speaks more out of turn, which is not a thing women did in Japanese, especially during the beginnings of the Tokugawa shogunate and all that. So there were some issues there. My friend is married to a Japanese woman, so he was able, and she was the one that brought this up to him, and he brought this up to me. So but it was very interesting. I kind of want to rewatch them now that I've been to Japan. But I stay in Osaka, but I went to Kyoto for a day. I don't know if you've been to Kyoto. Kyoto was
I didn't go to. I went to the
Kyoto
town.
Was
I don't remember the name of it, but the name of the town I went to is considered Little Kyoto, so it looks exactly like Kyoto. Like you're basically in Kyoto, but it's basically a smaller version of it.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it, but no, that's one of the places I would want to go. But you went to Kyoto. How was it? Like, what'd you do?
We went to Fushimi Inari. That's the steps with all the torii gates, the red torii gates.
Cool.
That was awesome. Like just seeing the temples, going up those, being in that shrine, having to be quiet and respectful. We went really early in the morning, and there were no Japanese. It was all tourists. It was all Caucasians or people from US or from different parts of the world. I was surprised. Japan is more of a Japan's way more of a melting pot than I thought it was, especially in the city. Like,
I think it depends on where you are. Like if you're in Osaka and Kyoto, yes. Like when I was in Tokyo, I remember thinking, wow, there are a lot more people here. But like Yokohama is not too far from Tokyo, and there were no other
suburb.
Caucasians
You said
there was only Japanese people living in Yokohama.
Is it part of the Tokyo metropolitan area, Yokohama? I'm looking at the map, and Yokohama's like right next to it. So
it sort of blends. It's hard to say. Like the thing is there's not a whole lot of rural areas in Japan. I mean,
I've noticed. So
it's way out on the outskirts. Like
they call them megalopolises or something like that. They're like multiple cities like connected.
Like, let me see how long. I can't even remember how long it takes. I didn't go to Tokyo very often. Let me see, because I don't even remember how long it took to get there. Directions.
Yeah, if I would have stayed longer, might have tried
like
to
it
find
would
a
have
way
been
to
like
take the bullet train.
like a 40-minute to 45-minute drive, or like I'm sure by train or bus it would have taken even longer because you have to transfer here and there. But but it took me a while to get to school. Like, and because I was walking, I would walk, take a bus, and take the subway, and then I would walk again. So walk, bus, subway, walk, school, and it would take me an hour to get there. But I wasn't going as far away as Tokyo. I was going in Yokohama. I think it was Gumioji was where I went to school, which probably wouldn't take very long to get to if you were driving. But if you're doing it like a kid, then yeah, it takes a long time.
How's your Japanese?
Nothing. I hardly remember any. The thing is like I pick up languages pretty quickly, just the basics of them, and I think that's because I was studying Latin when I was in school, and then getting to Japan, everyone's like, "Oh, it's a really hard language to learn." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like the pronunciation, first of all, is super easy, and then the construction of the sentence made perfect sense to me because I was already doing that in Latin, but. Nah, I don't think I can. I'm not conversational. I can usually understand what I'm hearing, but just barely at this point. But I mean, I could understand when I was there. Let's see. Remember, I went there like 25 years ago, something like that. It was like 25 years ago when I was in Japan. So it's been a while.
Yeah, I was in high school then. I was starting. I think I was starting freshman or sophomore year, 2000.
So let me see. Yeah, I'm having trouble finding places where I don't know why I don't usually use maps on my computer. I usually use it. Okay, yeah. If you zoom in like where I lived and where Tokyo is, it looks like the same city, but it doesn't. I mean, so do places that are 3 hours away. Looks like they're the same city. So you know, like Utsunomiya is, I think, 1 to like 3 hours away, and it looks like it's the same city. And then you've got this rural area in the middle, which is mostly national forest, so nobody's going to live there. I climbed Mount Fuji, which was fun.
I want to go there. I always thought Mount Fuji was closer to Tokyo than it is.
I think just because we always associate Mount Fuji and Tokyo, you know, the wave picture. Thing. But
Shochiku Productions. You see Mount Fuji on that bill all the time too. What's funny is I first learned about Mount Fuji in the game Mario's Missing. Mario's Missing was an educational Mario game that came out in the 90s on the Super Nintendo. I thought it was a real game, so I'm actually working on a video on that right now. But that's how I learned about like, you know, geography of like multiple, like all, especially the really popular landmarks all over the world. I learned about Mount Fuji from that game, believe it or not, when Luigi goes to Tokyo and everything. So
hey, as long if you're able to learn something from it, great. Like,
hey, I got second place in geography bee because of that game. So yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's
in grade school.
That is an argument for video games for kids. I've always thought that somebody has not tapped into turning a video game into some educational material, like in some way. You should be able to do that. They should have like the events of history play out, like certain events like Napoleon's Wars. Okay. The Napoleonic Wars. That's a game that you get to play, and you're going to remember the events so much better if you're a character in in battles.
Make education fun. I mean, make it fun to learn. Like when I was growing up, math, learning prime numbers and equalities and all that. I played a game called Number Munch. I don't know if you remember Number Munchers. You're basically you're a green dude. You're navigating on this grid, and there's numbers in each grid, and you have to eat the numbers that the theme of the level says. So it says eat prime numbers. So you have a whole bunch of numbers in the grid, and you have to eat only the prime numbers. If you eat the wrong number, you lose a life.
Okay.
And if you lose 4 lives, you get game over, basically.
That'll teach you the prime numbers, though. That's good.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm actually going to include that. I'm going to include that's going to be my next video. I haven't done a video retrospective in a long time, but that's going to be my next one. Educational Mario, educational games. Are they still a thing? Are they still effective and all that?
I don't think I've heard any of them. Like somebody could put a nice budget into one of those and make it interesting, get some good actors and have some good cut scenes. Like, why not? Like,
yeah. I mean, if you ever play, you ever hear of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, they basically copied that game and they created Mario's Missing and Mario's Time Machine and all that stuff. So yeah, those games are still fun though. I still like them.
But like, I'm just trying to think because like my brother was also at one point into they were like it was like World War II games or something. Where come on, what are some of those first
Call of Duty?
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
Yes. And I think that playing those games as a kid got him into history. You know, like he had a interest in what was going on during that time because of the games, playing those games. So
yes,
there is a good effect to some of these video games, but why not try to pack them with a little bit more education in there if you can, just for the hell of it, just see what happens.
Yeah.
Man, now I want to go back to Japan. I've got to stop looking at the map. Like I'm looking at the map. I'm feeling like there's the park I got lost in like 3 times.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I managed to get a picture. I managed to get a picture of myself outside of Nintendo's headquarters in Kyoto. So I managed to get a picture with this hat on. I got this hat from we went to Universal Studios in Osaka. So they opened, I don't know if you heard, but they opened a Nintendo World in Universal Studios. It's called the Super Nintendo World.
I did not hear about that. That's crazy.
So there's a Super Nintendo World. You see all this animatronics, like you see pipes and you see piranha plants and animatronic Goombas moving around and everything. And like we got there. Now they opened it up about a year ago, I think, maybe a year or 2 ago. We got there at 6 a.m. and the place was already packed with people and their kids. And when they opened the gates, all the people with their kids were running to the Super Nintendo World to get to the there are 2 rides that they have. They have a Mario Kart ride, which is more like, you know, you're in this vehicle, and it's like you have these screens in front of you. It's like you know, like you're shooting. It's like those shooting games and all that you go to. You're kind of riding like a scene in a movie or like an action scene. It's kind of like that. That's how the Mario Kart thing is. And then you have a roller coaster, and that was the Donkey Kong ride. The roller coaster was basically a minecart ride from the game Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, cool.
So it feels like you're jumping from track to track, even though you're not really doing that.
How new is it? Is it a pretty new?
It's only a couple years. It's only a couple years old. I think they actually opened it recently in Florida, in Orlando.
Okay.
And they already have one, I think, in Hollywood as well. But the Osaka one is like the one that they first opened it at. So, and so I got to experience that. It wasn't my favorite thing to do, but it was something young me would have loved, you know, growing up in the 90s.
When was the last time you went to like Disneyland?
I've never been to Disneyland. Disney World, I was 7.
Oh, okay.
This was 1992.
I went to Disneyland after they opened Galaxy's Edge.
Okay.
That was wild. I have to say, that was maybe the first time I've ever like, oh my gosh, I am on the Death Star. Because there's a part where you go in to a room and you're in one of the hangars of the Death Star, and there's a bunch of stormtroopers in their ranks standing there, and then there's the open hangar door out to space behind you, and then this giant ship. And I was like, they built the set here, and I get to walk around in it. It was so good. It was definitely the best ride I've ever been on was there, and the whole place was great. Just you felt like you were walking around in Tatooine. It was totally cool. And then there was what was it? Oh yeah, okay. So in Universal, I think it's Universal, they've recently opened up How to Train Your Dragon World, I guess, something like that. Have you ever seen those movies?
No.
Okay, those are good. Do you have kids?
No.
Okay, well, if you had kids, I was going to say give them those movies to watch because they're good movies, good storytelling, and they won't annoy you. But I've heard that they've done the same thing with that I think it's in Florida. No. They said that they've done one in California and one in Florida. I really want to go to that because they said it makes the Galaxy's Edge place feel like it's not even like it's as good as that, if not better. And I'm like, okay, if they can do that good, then I definitely want to see it. No, I love immersive experiences like that. So cool.
Okay. All right.
But no, you should check it out if you ever. I know Disneyland is so freaking expensive now, though. That's why you have to go during off season.
And Disney Star Wars, I don't want to support.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get that. But the thing is like, wouldn't you want to walk around in the Death Star? Like, I literally felt like I was walking around in the Death Star. It was that cool.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Like, you're running, you're like, oh crap, what am I doing here? And then all of a sudden you see Vader fighting someone. You're like, oh, we gotta get away from Vader. Let's go.
And it's not even like you're not just sitting in this thing. They actually take you like you are prisoners. Like they have actors who come out dressed like Imperial guards, and they are escorting you to your cell. And then somebody comes to break you out of the cell or whatever, and you see their lightsaber come in through the cell and then cutting around you, and you're like, I was standing right next to that wall. Like it really is so immersive. They did such a good job. I think that the idea of having live actors pulling people through this, from room to room or from hallway to hallway, like you feel like you're in the Death Star. It was great. I think it's a new kind of ride. And then, at the end, you jump into a sort of a cart and you sit in the cart, and it's not on a track, which is nice. It's robotic. So you're on wheels, and then it goes through its little adventure where you have, at one point the guns are firing, and they're these huge guns, and they've obviously really built them, and the recoil is great. And I'm like, I'm so in this, like I'm so involved. So just, it's so worth going to just to experience that once in your life. Like you've ever wanted to feel like you were in Star Wars, the Death Star. And I don't mean new Star Wars, I mean old Star Wars. Like go do it.
Okay. I missed out. So I missed out on the Star Trek The Experience. I don't know if you remember the Star Trek The Experience. That was the thing that they had in Las Vegas. It was like a ride. It was like a ride, and it was at a hotel or something. You got to experience Quark's bar and everything. It closed a few months before I actually went to Las Vegas myself as an adult in 2010. So So I missed out on that. I was curious if you ever went to that at all. That was a big deal in the 90s and 2000s.
I did not. And what's funny is I don't remember if it was there or if it was a traveling show that ended up here in Phoenix. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. There was the TNG deck, the deck of the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
And I think it was here in Phoenix. And some of my fellow fencers, my channel is called The Sword and the Pen because I'm a fencer and an editor.
I was going to ask that. Okay. All right. Are you as good as Guinan and Picard?
Huh?
Are you as good as Guinan and Picard at fencing?
Oh, that was pathetic. Plus they were fencing foil, and that's my second weapon. My primary weapon is epee, and then foil, and then saber. But I mean, when I was competing, it was strictly epee, which is the entire body is a target. No rules, basically, which is nice. Mm-hmm. The other two weapons have specific rules, right of way, limited target zones, things like that. But so mine's the more realistic of the three. Just gonna say. If you were fencing a duel back in the day, it would have been to first blood. So you can bleed from anywhere on your body. That's why the entire body is a target in epee. Anyway, so two of my fencer friends were visiting that set, the deck of the command deck of the Enterprise D, and he proposed to her there
Oh,
on the deck, like from the commander's seat. I was like, oh, that's great, that's perfect. Total, I mean, lots of geeks in fencing. And then at the wedding, all of the bridegrooms, what are they called? The groomsmen. I was like,
Yeah.
bridegrooms. The groomsmen had lightsabers and created like arches. I was like,
oh, okay.
so dorky, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I totally get it. Like they were just geeks having fun, and then she walked to the Hobbit, like not the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings Hobbiton theme. It's like, okay, why not bring it all in? Star
Yeah.
Trek, Star Wars, Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings. What else is there? Harry Potter.
Nintendo.
Anyway,
Super Mario themed. I've seen Super Mario. There's so many themed weddings. You know, it's just it's crazy. I don't think I'd ever do. I don't think I'd ever do anything like that. I think I'd prefer the traditional approach, but hey, who knows? Yeah, Star Trek the experience. But the one ride that I remember that I thought was real, I think I was 6 or 7. I thought the ride was real, and I freaked the hell out. Do you remember Back to the Future ride at Universal?
I've never been to Universal.
Okay, well, Universal had the Back to the Future ride, so you were on the DeLorean and you were chasing another DeLorean. You're chasing Biff steals Doc's DeLorean, and Doc's on the screen giving everybody instructions.
Is
on
it where like the audience is sitting in a group?
Yes,
and then it moves
you're moving, and it jerked to the point where I thought we were really in a volcano. Like there's a point where we're chasing Biff into a volcano. We're in the flying DeLorean. And we're chasing him, and we were going back in time to volcanoes. There's a T-Rex in there. I was freaking. I was a 6 or 7 year old freaking. I was on that ride by myself. There was no room for my parents to come on with me, so I was on there by myself with strangers. And I thought we really went back in time. I was freaking out.
Okay, I just put it up on my YouTube screen here so I can see what you're talking about. The equivalent to this at Disney is Star Tours.
Star Tours, yep, I've been on that too.
Yeah, it looks like it's the same sort of deal. So yeah. Okay, the ride at Galaxy's Edge, the one that I was talking about, the crazy one, at one point you end up in this situation where the cart that you've been in that's been driving you around everywhere, it's obviously got hydraulics on it as well.
Yes.
Because you end up in a room with a screen and it's moving you around on this screen.
Yeah.
And then when you first get on the ride, you're in a ship. So you walk through like a jungle area into a ship because you're being taken prisoner. They put you in the ship and then they're going to fly you somewhere, right? So the ship is doing stuff. And then the same doors that you just came through open up, but you're inside the Death Star. And you're like, this is what I'm here for. This is the experience I want, full immersion. I have a really dorky thing that I annoy my family with. The last time we went to Disneyland, I must have said it like 10 times a day because we were there for like 2 or 3 days. I can't remember. And I was like, guys, this is a whole family luxury experience.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, that was the vibe I get. Guys, this is a whole family luxury experience.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so great. I love that. I just, when they say adults, oh, you shouldn't go to Disneyland. It's so stupid that you go to Disneyland. Like, have you been to Disneyland? Have you been there and like gone on the rides? Where else do you get that experience? You want to create an adult adventure place for me? I will go there. But it's incredible technology that's being used to create these experiences, and it's clean.
I agree.
And yes, it's expensive as hell. There's such a great attention to detail everywhere. Like even when you're waiting in line to get in a ride and you're like, I've been in line for 45 minutes, but there is stuff around me that is interesting to look at because I can tell some artist took time to make this little nook here interesting, So you don't appreciate those things as a kid. If you think Disneyland is a place for kids, I don't think you've been there and looked around.
No, there's a lot
obviously a place welcome for. It's a whole family luxury experience.
Yeah, the kids get something out of it. The adults get something out of it too. So I agree. I think I get more out of it as a kid, especially the Nintendo world, than as an adult. But that's just me. But yeah,
I think Nintendo has been catering a bit to a younger audience. Even the movie that came out, the Mario movie that came out, I went to go see it thinking it was going to be like a Pixar movie, and I was like, actually, I think this is more like little kid movie. It's like a little kid movie with great animation.
It's a lot. It has a lot in common with current Pixar and current DreamWorks. That I mean, that's just how those movies are now. It's not like it's not like at the level of like Toy Story or Toy Story 3 or Finding Nemo or the original Monsters Inc. or
Inside Out was
or The Incredibles.
Good. Like I thought Inside Out had great stuff in it. I haven't seen some of the newest Pixar things, but
same here. Coco was recommended.
Coco, I've watched that, and I would say I can see how maybe it's straying a little bit away, but not that much. It was still great. I mean, oh gosh, I love the Dia de los Muertos as aesthetic. I think it's so cool. I live on the border, so I get to see it every once in a while, which is fun because we celebrate it here in Arizona. But to have the marigolds and the skeletons and the colors and the vibrance like that is really fun. I like that. But I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of the more recent Pixar's. Like, what is there? What else has there been?
I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. But going back to the Mario movie.
Oh yeah.
The Mario movie had a lot of for me, because I think Mario, besides Disney, besides Donald Duck, Mario was one of the earliest things that I was a fan of. I've been a fan of that since I was 5 or 6. Parents brought the NES home back in like '89. I was real young, and it came with Super Mario Brothers, and then a few months later, my parents bought Mario 3, and then bought Mario 2, and so I managed to, as a 5-year-old, I managed to play and complete those 3 games while the Mario Super Show was on TV after school. I was in kindergarten. It was on right after school, so you got to see the live action segment of Mario played by Lou Albano and Luigi played by Danny Wells, and then they had the animated segments where they provided the voice of Mario and Luigi, and then you have Toad and Princess Toadstool and Bowser or King Koopa as they call him in that show, and then they had a Zelda cartoon at the same time. So I mean, like I was like living like Mario, like between playing the games and watching that animated show. And they brought that back in the new Mario movie. They played the theme of the original Mario Super Show. It's called The Plumber's Rap, and they played it, and I had some tears thinking about that. And they played some of the music. They played some of the music from the games too. So it brought back a lot of memories from being a kid back then. So it wasn't just for kids, now it was for people my age and older.
Right. But I mean when I say I don't feel like it was meant for adults, as in adults who've never been exposed to Mario before. Like I went in there, like, cause I've played Mario Brothers, but I didn't have any Nintendo or Sega or Xbox or anything growing up. Like I didn't even have computer games really. I mean, like I was sneaking over to my cousin's house to play Oregon Trail, so I didn't have that. And so when I went to the Mario Brothers, I knew it was going to have the nostalgic music and a few things like that. But I got a story that was not catered to a broad audience. It was this is a very childish story. And I'm not saying this like in a derogatory way. I'm not saying like, oh, this is kiddie stuff. I just mean that it was not like what we described earlier, where you have Toy Story or Pixar, where there are some more deeper adult themes in there and you can explore that. But I think that it had a lot in there for people who grew up with Mario. Even I could detect that. Even I, who have not played the games really. I mean, I had a Game Boy. I mean, it wasn't mine. My parents brought me to a friend's house and they had a Game Boy with Mario on it. And I was on that for like 3 hours straight because I just never had access to video games before and I wanted to play. Yeah. So I remember it from that. I remember it from going over to my neighbor's house where they were playing, Nintendo 64. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have Mario and, and you've got Sonic, no way, Yeah. And I would mostly watch them play because they wouldn't let me play because I didn't know how. But watching the movie, it was a very simplistic story. It was something that didn't give a lot of weight to drama, where you did get that in things like Toy Story and even Cars. And I'm looking at the list here: Monsters Inc., Inside Out, Cars, Coco. I mean, just the most recent ones. But like, think about the old ones especially. and like The Incredibles is a family drama. It's about a family that's moving and having to deal with all these changes, and the dad suddenly has an opportunity to, you know, get back into his old life, and he's really loving it, and he's, you know, the better dad for it and stuff, but he's also keeping secrets from the family. Not good. There wasn't something in there for an adult new audience.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I mean, it's just, it basically, it's basically, I mean, this Mario movie was also a family drama. We get to meet Mario's family, and there's a lot of disapproval, you know, very Italian family. And they're like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And Mario's just like, well, I want to do what I want to do and all that. And I mean,
But that wasn't the central focus of the story.
Well, I mean, it was what was set up in the before they get sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom and all that, and it does pay off at the end, I think.
Yeah, but so, I mean, you could see the difference though between something like Toy Story and
easily, yeah.
Yeah, like one
it's not even on the same level. I
and that's
totally
what
agree.
I'm talking about. Yes. Sorry, somebody came in, and then they snuck away again. You might be making a lot of noise, but that's what I mean by the movie not being at the same writing level as what I was anticipating. I was coming in thinking this is going to be like another Pixar movie, and it wasn't. It wasn't one of the old Pixar movies, which that's what I compare them to, because like I said, I haven't seen some of these new ones. Like I'm looking at them going, what? Like I saw Soul. I liked that. I don't think I saw Onward. I
didn't see it either.
Yeah, I saw Toy Story 3, but not 2 or 4.
I didn't see 4. As far as I'm concerned, you can't really top Toy Story 3. Like
oh my gosh, I still cry. Everybody knows the scene.
And what's weird is that came out after I was already graduated from college, so kind of seeing that and saying goodbye to childhood was very poignant, because I was a kid in 95 when first Toy Story came out. I was 5th grade. I was in 5th grade, so I was still a kid when that came out. So, you know, Toy Story 3 coming out, you know, 15 years later, you know, all of us who were kids then are now grown up.
Yeah.
You know, it was very, I mean, that I think I personally feel Toy Story 3 was made for people my age, basically.
Well, I mean, obviously,
and
especially when you've got all the toys are about to go into the inferno, and then they have to learn the lesson of letting go and moving on, and you know, but those are the sort of themes that I was expecting going into the Mario movie, and I wasn't getting any of that. So that's
it's more like a hey, here, you remember this from the video games?
Yeah,
there you go.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like I feel like I learned the lesson of like I should look up before I go. Like my nephew, I remember, enjoyed it, but even he came away from it like he was a teenager, or he's almost a teenager. So he was like, I don't know, like he didn't play Mario, so he just knew it from like Mario Kart, the couple of times he was allowed to play that, and so he was like, it was fun, but he's like, it was a little kiddish, but you know, whatever. And I was like, yeah, about this, I felt about the same. But I even felt the nostalgia watching that movie. Like I came away from it going like, yes, that music was, and to me, the music really carried it. I really loved the music. It was so well done. To have a full orchestra playing those themes was great.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. It was just like, you know, I mean, if you're going to make a Mario movie, I mean, it was just basically a homage to the games. Like they had several segments where it was a platformer, like it was a 2D platformer. You see them jumping across like ladders, doing parkour stuff. I mean, it was basically a tribute to me. It was a tribute to the games, and
which is what it was so obviously supposed to be. It didn't do anything wrong. It just didn't. It wasn't what I expected.
It wasn't the high, you know. It wasn't the high themed, or
it wasn't a Pixar.
It wasn't a deep themed narrative. I guess is the proper is that accurate to what you're saying? Deep themed narrative, basically. They had deep moments.
Having something a little more central to the story that is a bit deeper, a bit more universal, I think. But again, it's like, you know, you can't expect that that a kid's story is going to do that every time. Sometimes they aren't meant to do that. So, but yeah, like I'm looking at these. I haven't seen some of these. Luca, Turning Red, Lightyear, Elemental, Inside Out 2. Okay, I did go and see Inside Out 2, and I was the only person in the theater who cracked up when the anxiety guy was like going so fast that it was just like a blur. I thought that was hilarious. It probably wasn't supposed to laugh at that point. Elio, I haven't even heard of that. Oh, it's upcoming. That's why I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't. It's been a while since I've watched. Pixar movies and all that. So every once in a while, I might rewatch Toy Story or.
There's
Finding
a Toy
Nemo.
Story 5 coming, and there's an Incredibles 3 coming.
Oh no!
I liked Incredibles 2. I thought that was a good flip.
Everybody. I get a lot of crap from everybody. Like, how have you not seen the Incredibles? I haven't seen the Incredibles.
It's very stylistic. It's got a great soundtrack. I mean, I just like the Incredibles anyway, but it's a very stylized, almost like it's a very comic book style superheroes.
Yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
It's fun. Almost like Atomic Age, like they're all living in sort of a mid-century modern home. And you've got these big mega corporations where it's like just this big empty room with like one desk in it. It's fun. You'll like it. If you watch it, it's fun. It's a good one. It's definitely good for grown-ups watching because it's basically not down and out, but they're like, we're adults, we have children, our stress is, making sure we make it home on time to get the kids to all their extracurricular activities, and they're having trouble in school, but they also have to be superheroes. So it's fun. It's very fun in that way.
I still have not seen WALL-E either.
WALL-E was good. I would say at the time the animation was very impressive. Like that was the main draw for it. I think that was one of the more kiddie-ish of the Pixar's to come out. Did this weird thing where it combined live action with CGI. So like there's whole segments in there where there's actual human beings talking to, they're in the movie.
Really?
And I'm like, that's a person. And yeah, it took me out a little bit.
I see. I haven't seen it myself. I've seen the trailer. I just know it's from the robot's point of view, and there's a bunch of fat humans because technology keeps them from exercising or something. So
yeah, they're just blobs. It's cute. I enjoyed it. I saw it in theaters when it came out.
Okay.
Up. You know what? I am not as big of a fan of Up as most people are, but the beginning
is so touching.
Those first few minutes of Up have outdone most storytelling in most movies.
Yes. I agree.
Toy Story 3, yes, we've talked about that. Cars 2, I don't think I've seen that.
I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen Cars 1, so.
Cars 1 was fun. It was cute. It was like, hey, respect to old people and old ways. Like, don't bash them just because they're old and you're fast and slick,
Yeah.
Brave, I've seen that one. My mom wanted to watch that one because, it's a mother-daughter story. It was very good. It definitely was not what I expected. Like, I did not know what happens in the story at all. And then when it came out, I was like, oh, very interesting. Monsters University. I haven't seen that. I know it's good. I'm supposed to see that one. And Inside Out, I thought was an excellent way for adults to talk to children about like depression and anxiety and their different feelings. That was
Which movie again?
Inside Out. That's one where
it's
the feelings, like there's disgust and sadness and happiness or joy and anger.
Yeah.
Fear. And it's just those 5 primal feelings that people have, and what happens when you have something that's exciting that happens, but also really sad, or like, I don't know, stuff like that. A happy, sad moment, complex emotions, like how to characterize emotions so that when a kid is talking to you about how they feel, you could say, do you feel a little bit like this is a happy, sad thing? Yeah, like a happy, sad thing. Then they can visualize in this movie, joy and sadness when there was a memory that was made that was both happy and sad at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way. I feel like at a time when people needed to be able to talk about mental health, especially to young people, that was a good movie to come out. And then they sort of expanded it in the second one when she's got other things going on. Like,
there was a second one.
Yeah, Inside Out 2. That was one that I saw. It was basically the same story as Inside Out, the first one, but now we're adding more emotions to it. So what happens when you become a teenager? Well, more complex emotions like anxiety and a couple of others. I can't remember what they were.
Oh, this movie. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
Let's see. Ennui, anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui, which is like boredom, tedium. Like that was the funniest one because you did teenagers who are like just totally dead to what's going on because it's just like whatever, so bored. It was good. I think it's good. I don't think they should do any more though. That'd be weird. What are they going to do? Adulthood next?
Nah, I don't think so. So. It's been already 3 hours. It's been 3 hours.
Yeah.
So,
well, when you've got Star Trek to talk about and Wheel of Time and
it seems like the conversation to be continued. So, is there any threads that we need to resolve next time? Because everything has to have a sequel now, including Chillporeal. Like, am I your father's brother's sister's aunt's former roommate? What does that make us? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I can always talk about Star Trek. I can always talk about like Pixar. Like anything that has to do with storytelling, I am totally into it.
Notice we barely talked about Wheel of Time season 3.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, what is there to talk about? It did so much nothing.
It had one episode. There was one episode that people somewhat liked, and that was episode 4.
And it was the episode that featured the main character doing stuff from the book.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it was universally liked by book lovers and non-book lovers alike, and yet the hints. I don't know. At this point, I think it's too late.
I knew it was going to drop off. I knew right after that. I was like, oh, this is gonna drop off. They're not going to learn. This was like a one-time thing, and then nothing. And then I ended up being correct. Like heck, I don't even know why they decided to end the season the way they did. They gave Moraine a fight with Lanfear instead of Rand chasing Asmodean like he does at the end of Shadow Rising.
What did Rand do the entire season? He did Ruidion, which was cool. One episode for that. And he walked out onto a platform and made it rain.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all he did.
That's all he did.
And I guess you could say he killed what was the name? Samael. But he barely did anything.
No, he didn't kill Samael. He didn't kill him. He
traumatized
was supposed to be Asmodean. He shielded him. He was supposed to be Asmodean, but then I think Moghedien killed. Moghedien is the one that killed Samael, which is not what happens. You haven't gone to Samael yet. Samael makes quite an appearance in.
No, I've met Samael.
Okay,
because he's in Fires of Heaven, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the beginning, and then you see you see more of him and Grendel in Lord of Chaos.
Samael to me in the show, I know that they're trying to compress
they made him a dwarf.
They are combining a lot of the Forsaken, which I'm actually okay with doing that.
Yeah, so they combined him and Asmodean. Asmodean was the one that Rand fights at the end of Shadow Rising and becomes his
teacher,
servant, or whatever.
But now he's dead.
Yeah, because Robert Jordan's like, we need a murder mystery, so let's kill off Asmodean, and then he did that. And that was the one thing. That was the one main thing that Sanderson wanted to know.
No. I mean, in the show.
Oh.
They killed off Samael in the show at the end.
Yeah, Moghedien. Yeah, Moghedien killed him. So you can't have the climax of one of the books and this was an awesome climax in one of the books because of what they just did there. Unless they find a way to do it to another character, which it's a mess, in my opinion.
In that case, and is Lanfear going to help in that case too? or is it going to be somebody else?
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. What I thought was going to happen was I thought they were going to take the end of Fires of Heaven with Lanfear. I thought Moraine and Lanfear were going to go into the gate.
Yeah, so did I.
So I was surprised that they didn't do that. So
yeah, I was really shocked.
But they're not going to make another season. Season 4 is not going to be a thing, at least in my mind.
How the hell they've hardly told any of the story. This is how many seasons are they planning on doing? 14?
8. They were planning on doing 8 seasons. 8
They're
seasons
not even
by 8.
They are not even a third of the way through the story, and they've done 3 full seasons. Like, you're almost halfway through your seasons, and you've not, like, what book would you say they ended on?
They ended technically on The Shadow Rising.
But not really, because
they skipped the Dragon Reborn. They skipped the Dragon.
They skipped the Dragon Reborn. They skipped the ending of Fires of Heaven, because that sets up him having a teacher for a whole book.
Yeah.
So now they have to lead up to him getting a teacher. It's just
they're not going to give him. They're not going to give him a teacher. Rand's just going to go. Rand's just going to be doing whatever Rand does, murdering people, and
I don't know what they're
Moraine's going to be, or Moron's going to be murdering people, and then he just goes and kills Ravin. He just kills Ravin. They go in and he shoots instead of that awesome chase. He's just going to go up to Ravin, shoot him with fireball balefire, like in Super Mario. Someone, I don't know if you've seen my buddy Nathan Manamanethram recreated Great Hunt. He has this sword duel with a blade master, High Lord Turok. It was a great moment.
Yeah, that was
learn all the sword forms. And he instead of describing the exact nature of the attacks, you hear the parting of the silk or the waves come on high or something like that. Stuff like that to describe the sword movements and all that. And instead of doing that, instead of having a duel, Rand in the show just shoots fireballs and kills all the Koopa troop. I mean, the Shan in Falme, including Bowser. High Lord Turok.
To me, the choices being made in the show make absolutely no sense. Just when it comes to pacing of the storytelling, if you're going to do this in 8 seasons, by the time you're at this stage, you've done 3 of your 8 seasons. You should be through at least a third to almost half of the books. So you should be done with book 5. You should have completed all the events of book 5, book 6 even. I haven't finished book 6, so I can't say what happens, but there's plenty of things you could have done to condense to get it in there. I did the math on season 1 and 2 and found out that there's not a huge page to minute difference between this adaptation, the Wheel of Time adaptation, and the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson version adaptation, the theatrical version, not even the extended edition. It is not that big of a difference. And there's plenty more in the Wheel of Time that I think can be cut and condensed. And they're just choosing not to do it. And they're adding so much.
They added Leandrin's backstory that was never a thing.
That makes no sense to me at all. Like, why would you do that when you could have had Rand getting a teacher for himself by the end of this season?
Yeah, I agree.
Why would you spend all this time on Leandrin? Because they wanted to give Nynaeve.
Because they like Kate Fleetwood a lot, I guess.
I mean, I like her too. I thought she was one of the better characters in some of these seasons. She's one of the better ones because she's doing stuff.
Yeah.
She's smarter-ish in some episodes. I can't even say all episodes. In some episodes, she's smart. It's very frustrating because this show has such a budget, such an incredible budget. And I think that they actually have a lot of talent behind this production, but the writing is just terrible. It's just awful.
The costume department could use some work too. I mean, we've spotted them reusing costumes from older movies.
I actually will disagree with the costume complaint only because I have experience in making costumes, like not cosplay costumes, but like real complex couture clothing. And especially in this third season, some of the stuff that the Aes Sedai women wear is really impressive in the construction. Like this is stuff that those are thousands of dollars worth of costumes each one of these women are wearing, and very difficult to make. Even like I'm thinking in season 2, Lanfear's BDSM outfit that she wears, as stupid as it looks, and as I don't think this is the right look for her here, even that has some extreme details in it that are extremely difficult to accomplish. They're doing it. What's her name? Varen. She has a shirt in the first episode of season 2 that has this incredible pleating in it. This is stuff that has to be done by hand and takes weeks to do. So they are putting a lot of work, and these are very impressive constructions into these costumes. I don't know if they work for the show. I don't know if they work for these characters. I don't even know if they actually look great half the time, but the costumes themselves are very impressive. And if they're reusing costumes from other movies for stuff, fine, whatever. Like at least some of these are really impressive. I think the costume department is putting 120% into everything that they're doing because they know this show is not going to last. So let's just do everything we possibly can. Like we're going to give we're going to give Elida the most gaudy, elaborate coronation outfit, whatever, ever. There's a lot of work that went into these costumes, and some of them are not easy to make.
Okay. I figure. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. So, but yeah, the series. I mean, it was we live in an age of wasted effort and wasted opportunities, and I mean, this is one I really feel for Wheel of Time fans. Now, you and me, we're first time readers. We're new to the story, but people have been reading the story for years. Our friends White Cloaks, Prophet, all those guys, they've been reading the series for years, and the fact that they couldn't even, get a proper adaptation is just it's sad, to be honest. Like Lord of the Rings fans got the films, and despite the differences and the changes made, I mean, I personally feel, and I know Christopher Tolkien would totally disagree with me. I felt it still had a lot of the soul of the story of Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Books that Tolkien wrote.
They stuck to the themes. They did not write anything that was their own and stick it in there.
Yeah.
Even like replacing Glorfindel with Arwen, I think was a good choice, because they're like, we want to emphasize Aragorn's romance with her, because otherwise you're going to have everybody going, how come Aragorn didn't go with Éowyn? Like, why didn't he go with Éowyn? So you had to.
Yeah, I feel that Frodo should have rode by himself, though. It robbed him of the agency that he had when he faced up to the ring race by himself on that horse at the ford and all that. But that's a debate for another stream. Yeah. So
the thing is, I agree with you though that the themes were adhered to. Nobody tried to put in anything new. They're like, we're going to take what's already there and we're going to move it into a new medium. That's what they did. Yeah.
And I mean, Peter Jackson is on record saying that in an interview. I think it was Charlie Rose. And so, so I mean, everybody, whenever you hear criticisms of Rings of Power and all that, that's like one of the chief things that people, fans like to refer to on how to do a proper adaptation of a series and all that. So, and it's a shame what they did to, what they did to Robert Jordan's work. I mean, Robert Jordan's not here to defend it, and his wife Harriet is, I mean, she's elderly. She can't really do anything. So I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame that they did this with the Wheel of Time. So so I'm really hoping that that series gets canceled, and that maybe years later, another generation picks it up and actually adapts it the proper way.
I think it's more of a possibility than people think. I mean, the fact that how many remakes we're getting nowadays, and somebody is going to say, the reason Wheel of Crime didn't go anywhere is because it was shit writing.
Yeah, and just disregarding what the original author was trying to say.
Yeah.
So, so Amber, thanks for doing this. It was a lot
thanks
of
for
fun.
having me.
We definitely got to do part 2. So I figure before I say goodbye, what's going on with you? What do you got planned coming up on your channel? Sword in the Pen or Sword in the Pen Reflections? Which one? What's going on, Amber? Tell
Sword
us.
in the Pen Reflections. I am putting out reviews of The Wheel of Time, the show, and trying my best to compare them to the books, but it's mainly a critique of the show because the show is just doing its own thing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Those episode reviews are coming out as soon as they can. Amazon is choking my channel, not letting me put out stuff. And then when I do, I finally get it past their copyright block, they're claiming the video. So I am not going to put out a video there and let them collect the money that I earn from it. So it's taking a while.
Have you tried contesting it?
I have, yeah.
And
but
they've
they
responded.
usually let me. When I get to the point of contesting, I'm contesting. Please unblock my video. Let me at least show it. But then they're like, okay, you can show it, but we're collecting all the money from it. So that's as far as I can get. So I am manipulating it as far as I can to the point that I actually get to keep the money that I make off of it at this point, because I don't want to. I'm done with them getting what they want from it. So I'm doing that. Those episodes are coming out, but obviously much slower than what I was originally hoping to do. I have a couple missing episodes from season 2, and that is because, Amazon was choking me, and so I jumped ahead to season 3 so that I could be on time with those. And anyway, those are coming out, but I'm also doing The Last of Us. I have episode 1 and 2 reviews out. I will be filming for 3 and 4 and maybe 5 on Sunday. To get those out. I'm pretty quick with getting those out. Film, edit, and deliver in one day or 1 or 2 days. And then, that's pretty much all I've got going right there is those 2 things. But I would like to branch out into something else, a third something, because I went into The Last of Us season 2 hoping it would be good. Because I enjoyed, for the most part, I remember enjoying season 1. It wasn't what I expected going into it, so I was disappointed at that. I was also annoyed at Ellie's character, but by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, I can see the merits of this. I can see the game is better. The video game is much better storytelling, in my opinion. Yeah, and I was fortunate when I was reviewing season 1 on an old channel. I was with a friend and his daughter had played the game so many times, so she was telling us the differences between the game and the show, and we were able to compare as we went. And it sounds like the games did a few things a lot better. The end of that first game, which I think was I think is the same as the end of this first season, where Joel has to make a decision either to let Ellie die so that they can take her brain out and use it to cure humanity, or to save her life. I thought that was a great decision. I thought that was a great moment, great character moment right there. The whole thing I think was good. And the thing is, in general, it was good. I came into season 2 going, okay, now that I know what kind of show this is, I think I'll have a more positive experience with it. And immediately it was like an alien show. It was like, what is this? It felt completely different. That's how a lot of people felt about The Last of Us Part 2, because that's basically what they're adapting. I did not know that. I knew that there was I knew about the big death that happens in episode 2, and I was like, golf. Okay, it depends on how they do it. And I was like, because everybody's complaining about they didn't like it because they killed off this character, and I was like, okay, well, I'll see for myself. Maybe they do it in a way that it works, but it did not work. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Last of Us is Joel's story. When you kill off Joel, it was season 1 definitely was, for sure. It starts out with him and it ends with him. He is the establishing character in the beginning, and he makes the major decision that determines the end. He's the one who goes through the big arc. Yeah. Ellie goes through very little arc in season 1. Yeah, I don't think they should have shifted. I think Ellie should have had a bigger role in part 2.
I don't think they should have completely shifted it to the point where they remove him from the board and then
Well,
make
it's
her
not even-
make her the protagonist. And the way that game ends, I saw the ending. It's, geez, nihilistic is an understatement.
I don't know how it ends. The only spoiler that I have is that it's told from two separate perspectives, Ellie's and Abby's.
Yeah.
And I've only seen Ellie's so far. So I know that there's a third season coming. I'm thinking they're going to do season 2 is Ellie and season 3 is Abby. That's what my guess is. Because I don't think I'm like, there's no way you can switch over. We've done 4 episodes. Are they going to switch over to Abby now? Like, that would be pointless. Ellie's done
because that's what they did in that game. They would switch between Ellie and Abby, and they tried to make Abby this.
Well, don't tell me. I know that they're supposed to, like,
they try to make her the sympathetic character. I'm like, how are you going to do that? She just murdered a guy. It's like trying to make Kylo Ren sympathetic. He just murdered his father, Han Solo. So, I mean, it's good luck with that. She needs
to pay the Greyjoy price.
Yeah,
But I went into season 2 wanting it to be like a positive review. Like, this will be one that I'll have some critiques, which I did, in season 1. So I'm expecting the same. And I'm coming out of this going, I'm mainly complaining, and that's not what I wanted. I went into it wanting to really, really like it, and it's just so riddled with problems in the writing. So I'm trying to find something positive to review other than that. So I've got Wheel of Time, which is just an ongoing slow process, unfortunately. The Last of Us, but I want to add a third. It has been suggested to me that I should do Foundation because I actually enjoyed, especially the first season of Foundation.
Did you read the Asimov books?
I'm mostly done with book 1.
Okay.
It's not really an adaptation like most people would think.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
Well, basically the books are conversations where they describe things that have happened, or it's a negotiating table and you're at the negotiating table and there's events that have happened and this is a crucial moment in the story, and it's changing characters, like you're jumping generations between chapters basically. And the show is not like that. The show is showing those events and doing its own thing often, and I think it's gender swapped a few characters, but it doesn't feel irritating because it's like, yeah, okay, I can see this is fine. Like this is a very symbolic story from what I'm gathering, and I can't speak for the book as a whole because I have not finished it. I'm familiar with what Foundation is because it was my grandmother's like favorite book series, but I've never read them myself. But I know
you sound like you have an awesome family. I wish my family liked science fiction and or speculative fiction in general. My family's boring. They like nonfiction and politics and. Like, come on.
My family likes that stuff too, but we just like general storytelling in general.
Like, how my family reacted to me liking Star Trek. I can't believe I raised a Trekkie. I can't believe I raised a Trek. I'm like, come on. Like, I'm sorry.
You gotta ask them, like, have you ever watched Star Trek? Like, the thing is, like, my mom, so she's the one she's got a spinal injury. So she is very much, for the past 15 years, she's basically stuck on the couch or in bed or basically like wheelchair bound, and so she does a lot of movie watching and TV show watching. And for the longest time my family was trying to get her into, like, hey, I'm not a big anime watcher, but there's a few that I've seen that I really like. And I was like, Mom, this is good stuff. She's like, oh, it's just stupid Pokemon bullshit. And I'm like, no, not all of it. And could not for the life of her get her into anything, right?
Yeah.
But then One Piece came out and my mom watched that on her own, like just on her own, was like, this is that new Netflix show about pirates and it's supposed to be fun. And so she watched that show 3 times through by herself. She loved it so much. And she's like, is this what animes are like? Do they do stories like this? I'm like,
oh, bro.
Yes,
I mean,
some of them are like, not the ones I wanted to show you, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
All right. You want a series? This is what I've been recommending to people. Now this series is on, now I have the manga right here, but the series is on Netflix. This is the show. It's called Monster. And it's one of my favorite. It's easily my top 5 of all time anime shows. It's a psychological thriller.
Oh, okay.
Long. It's a 74 episode series.
Okay, nice and long.
full of red herrings and plot twists and everything. So yeah,
Just as renowned neurosurgeon Kenzo Tenma grows tired of hospital politics, he is faced with a difficult decision that carries huge consequences. Okay.
Yep.
There's definitely looks like some action because the cover is a guy with a gun.
Yeah. There's plenty of action. There's plenty of deaths. There's some horror elements. There's a lot of really, really adult stuff. Like especially dealing with kids. Now nothing, sexual or anything, but there's a lot of like brainwashing is a big theme. Kids being violent is a theme. There's some politics because this takes place in Germany. This takes place in Germany in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of the Cold War, coming off the Cold War and all that. So it's basically about a guy who's out of his he's out of his element. He's a Japanese doctor, best brain surgeon in Germany, best brain surgeon probably in the world. He's in Germany, he's doing his work, and he saves the life of someone who is a monster and goes on to murder people. And it's very interesting. They basically, the guy that wrote this, Naoki Urasawa, he basically was watching The Fugitive, and he wanted to make a thriller. So he watched The Fugitive, and the Fugitive was a big influence on the series.
I'm just looking at it. Like 3 of my favorite YouTubers are recommending, love it. I've got Patrick, Leo, Murphy Napier, and Philip Chase. Like they're 3 really good booktubers. They talk about epic fantasy mainly, but they all branch into manga and anime occasionally. So if they all like it, must be good.
I watched it. I must have watched the series 4 times. So
okay.
Yeah. So it's really good. It's I know Dane told me you're a big anime person, so this is one anime recommendation I'm giving you.
Not really a big anime person, but I mean, if there's a really good one, I will look into it. I think I've given quite a few animes a try and just not for me, but there are a few that I'm like, that's good. And yeah, I haven't come across European storytelling that's done this before, which is what I was trying to explain to my mother. It's like, Mom, there's some stories in anime you're not going to come across anywhere else. It won't do this. And she didn't believe me. And then I think it was the episode in One Piece where the guy who is the chef, he has his flashback to when he's a kid and he's on the island, and the guy that he's with cannibalizes his own leg so that the kid can have food and survive. And she's like, oh my gosh, that was horrifying and also beautiful.
Yeah.
I was like, I know. She's like, I don't think I've ever seen anything do that before. Not for a story like this. Yeah, anyway. But okay, so that's a good one. One I wanted to look into was, and I don't think there's an anime for it. It was another one that Murphy Napier did with Philip Chase. What was it? It wasn't Monster. It was one she did right before this. It's a samurai manga, beautiful artwork. Let me think. Right, manga. Oh. Nope, wait, I can see the cover, but I can't see the title on it.
Vagabond?
No. Oh, wait, yes, that is it. Vagabond. That's it.
Okay.
I'm interested in that, which I think is a historical drama. And it's probably exploring Bushido, if I think. So that would interest me.
Yeah,
I'm a martial arts fan. I love martial arts. So,
yeah, I mean,
so if there's an anime about martial arts, especially a more historically accurate depiction of Bushido, I want to know it. I want to read it.
Okay, I mean, there's plenty there's plenty from that Edo period, I think, that are really good. I mean, they did an anime adaptation of Seven Samurai. It's called Samurai 7. So they took the Kurosawa film and they turned it into a 26 episode anime series. One that I really like that they didn't make into an anime, it's a manga, but they made into a film series and a live action series. It's called Lone Wolf and Cub. It's about a father who played the part as an executioner that assisted people committing harakiri or seppuku and everything. Well, he ends up getting framed by a rival faction because they want to put their family. They want to put someone in their family in that position, so they frame him by putting a banner that in his house that he's not supposed to have. It's against the law. So he ends up, fighting his way out and making a deal and deciding. And he gives his son. He has a baby son, and he gives his baby son a choice. And they copy this in the Boba Fett with Luke Skywalker and Baby Yoda. He basically puts the sword down. He gives his little baby son a choice. He puts the sword down. He puts a little ball down. And if the son chooses the ball, that means the son is, doesn't want to live the life of violence, and he would basically kill his son. But if his son chose a sword, the son would join him in, what they call the path to hell, where they continue to live being hunted and basically taking on assassination jobs. Basically, that's basically what the story is about. And they made 6 movies back in the 70s, really violent, ultra violent, lots of blood squirting out of beheads behead or headless corpses.
Yeah.
It's red, obviously red paint, but still
old Japanese gore. Like they had a lot of that. The old Japanese gore movies were, there was one I wanted to see about the bear. There was a famous bear attack, a real life bear attack. It was horrible. Where it killed a whole bunch of people, and it was like this mad bear
in Japan.
It's like one of the worst bear attacks in all of history.
Worse than, when I think of a bear attack, I think of The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio.
No, this was worse. This was like carnage in the extreme.
Okay.
Like dragging women away into the woods, and then you find them like there's half a body here, and then it went into a building and killed a bunch of women and children. And
really,
because it was attacking, like it's okay. The Sankembetsu brown bear incident. Read it.
What is it called again? Let me write down.
SANKEB. So Sankebetsu.
All right, I got it. Okay.
Brown bear incident.
Brown bear incident. Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
It's horrific. It's I think one of the worst bear attacks in all of history. Where it terrorized a town. Do you remember The Ghost in the Darkness?
Yeah.
It's like that with a bear.
Okay, Ghost in the Darkness, The Edge. Yeah, The Ghost in the Darkness with Michael Douglas, and then they made another movie like that in Canada, I think, or Alaska. It's called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. They're being hunted by a bear. In Ghost in the Darkness, they're being hunted by a lion, if I remember correctly.
Not a lion, but that was a true story. Is The Edge a true story?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
So The Ghost in the Darkness was based on a true story of 2 lions who had some sort of a mental disorder. They were male lions who teamed up, which is unheard of, 2 male lions teaming up, and they just went on a killing spree. And they wouldn't necessarily eat the people that they caught. They would drag them back to their cave, and like it was clear that they're just killing because they enjoy hunting and killing.
Oh, okay. Oh,
and they killed a ton of people. Great story. Like, what a great idea for like making a movie. But the Sankebetsu story definitely deserves a good production, and it's got some movie. It's one of those old Japanese gore movies. I want to see it. Haven't been able to see it. I've only seen clips of it here and there, but that's one of the ones I want to see it done right. It's basically Ghost in the Darkness, except it's a town. They don't have the benefit of rifles, and they're trying to hunt down this bear that is just wherever the hunters are going to look for it. It's not there. It's always back by the women and children, killing them. Like, it's awful.
So is this like a horror? Is it basically like a
horror?
It's
like a horror. It's a real true story,
okay.
But it's a horrific true story. So,
right.
But anyway, that's one. Like, okay, here we go. It's got 2 novels, a radio play, a stage performance. My gosh, a manga called The Wild Legend. And a film called Yellow Fangs.
And this is Sankebetsu adaptations, basically?
Yeah. These are all about the Sankebetsu horror. is awful.
Okay. All right,
Read it. You'll be like, it's one of those stories where, when you get into like the real life details and you're like, this is bizarre, and it's like it is everything in a horror movie that you can imagine. It's horrible. So anyway, but that's that. We've trailed on way longer than I thought. Sorry.
I wrote them down. I still haven't seen Ghost in the Darkness. So
that's a good one to just see, and then you'll have seen it.
All right, I'll definitely do that. So okay,
and I've got Monster written down. I'll check that one out too.
Okay, so that's the longest promotion I've ever given anybody for their channel. That's great. So for me, everybody, So I'm going to be talking with my friend Ginger Ninja next week for Chillporeal. He actually painted me a picture. Actually, I should show it right now. Actually, I asked him. I commissioned him to paint an iconic scene from the original Star Trek, and I have it right here. I might as well show it to you. Yeah. I'm sure you'll I'm sure you'll recognize the scene, but give me 1 second. All right. I don't know if you could recognize this scene from the original Star Trek.
Like Star Trek, the show?
The original show.
I don't recognize that scene. It's been so long.
That's Kirk and Khan from Space Seed. So that's from the episode.
Like the Khan episode.
The Khan episode that leads into the Wrath of Khan, basically.
Awesome. Somebody, Summit recognized that Space Seed. Good call.
So yeah, I think this is
a great painting.
It is really, yeah. So this is my friend. His name's James Harris. He lives in Japan. He's and his name, his channel name, and his handle on X is the Jinja Ninja, basically.
Okay,
I see Ninja. Him. So yeah, so definitely give him a follow. Great artist. I want to do a follow up, even though this never happened in the Wrath of Khan. I want to do a follow up with a painting equivalent to this, but with Wrath of Khan with the white hair, and then and older, Shatner, older, Kirk from,
nice.
from that movie, cool. With them staring, but that never happens in the movie. They're never in the same scene in the movie. So this would be a what if. So and what I would also like to have in the background, in the middle, in between, is the Genesis device. And where would this take place? It would either be on SETI Alpha 5 in the Botany Bay vessel that was, where they held, where Chekhov and the captain of the Reliant get captured, or they would be in the tunnel in Regular One and everything. So it would be one of those locations, or maybe even the Regular space station itself. I mean, so I have to think of some ideas, and I have to put this together for him to paint or to draw.
That is really cool. I've just looked through some of his artwork on Instagram. Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Is this what he's doing in Japan?
Yes.
He lives in Japan and he's doing this artwork. This is great stuff.
Yes. So he was. I was able to see him at Comic-Con. They had Osaka Comic-Con last week Friday. So I went to it, and I was able. I ordered this on. I already ordered this on. I already messaged him. It's like, can you make this for me? And I brought him the money, and he gave it to me at the Comic-Con. So yeah, this is obviously my most treasured souvenir to bring back from Japan was this, believe it or not.
Tell him I really like his Harry Potter stuff. The very subtle Hogwarts statue is great.
Okay, I'll definitely let him know. So, but yeah, so between the educational Mario video I want to work on that my friend Dread Roberts made a awesome thumbnail for, and next week's Chillporeal, that's pretty much all I'm doing right now. So, I'll have to check out. I wrote down a lot of the stuff you recommend. So I wrote down Severance, Walter Mitty.
Severance would be the first one you should check out.
Severance. Okay.
It's
so
most
Severance.
current. You could do videos on Severance.
Okay. So Severance. All right. So Severance is at the top. So Severance, Walter Mitty. I'll check out Foundation, Sunkibetsu. I'll look up Sunkibetsu, Brown Bear. I'll look up the adaptations that you mentioned, and of course, Ghost in the Darkness. So
sweet.
So I got some homework now. I got some homework now for the next.
Need to get you caught up, man. Gotta get caught up.
I am way behind on everything. So, all right, Amber. Well, thanks for joining everybody. If you're still here watching, thanks for being here. Definitely follow Amber, both of Amber's channels, the Sword and the Pen, the Sword and the Pen Reflections. consider subscribing and becoming a member of the Nerporial Continuum. That's my membership. So I wonder, I'm sure you know where I got Nerporial Continuum from.
I figured it out. Yes.
Yeah. So consider joining that, and consider hitting the bell for notifications that when new Chillporeals show up or come up, you'll be the first to see them. I mean, these are all conversations like this. I talk about things that I'm interested in. I try to find common ground with guests and everything. And there's disagreements there and there, but I try to keep it as civil as possible. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun for me, and it's supposed to be even more fun for the guests. The guests supposed to come out of this happy and engaged.
I'm very happy. Had a good time.
So
thank you for having me.
No problem. So everybody, thank you for being here once again, and have a good night. And I guess we'll to be continued. It's going to be a to be continued. We'll do that. So to be continued.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially if you've seen some of the things I've given you, and I promise I will check out Monster and see what that's all about.
Oh, you're gonna love it. It's really good. So all right, to be continued. Let's go.